All right. ATM Hotep. Welcome to the Sesh channel. This is your brother Wujau Medew Eri Ma'at. We get the chat display on. Peace to Brother Strife. Peace to Sunette Lisa. And whoever else has tuned in as we kick this live stream off. So as you can see, the title of this live stream is The Land of the Blacks, Egypt or Sudan. All right, so that's the title, and that's the focus of this brief discussion that I'm about to have. All right, so if you've tuned in yesterday, did a live stream late last night, basically a wind down Wednesday live stream, kind of lighten the load up a little bit. Did a few reviews or replays of some older videos that now that seem pretty comical or funny, but at the time that the content of those videos were actually being said and claimed, those things that we now laugh at were actually taken serious and influenced a lot of people. So a lot of things, different things about aliens building the pyramids, to the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system never being deciphered, but yet still being used to teach by the people who say it wasn't deciphered. I mean, you name it. It's just a lot of things over the years that have been claimed that a lot of people have been influenced by and repeat to this very day. All right, so did a quick review last night of a couple of those things, and so later in the live stream, pretty much the last bit, what came up was the land of blacks thing. And that's a popular topic that I expect to come up. It's a zombie topic. I call it a zombie topic because it refuses to die. So anyway, I just want to have a brief discussion and go over it because I was asked, based on my comments last night, I was asked to go over that specifically, and not at the tail end of a different live stream. So that's what I chose to do now. So, again, peace to anyone who's tuned in. Really appreciate it. And make sure you type into the chat so I can, make yourself visible, make yourself known. So I know you're here, know you're watching and everything. And find something on the video to like the video, thumb up the video. All right. So we have, I think, 15 people so far. I should have 15 thumbs up. All right. So anyway, so peace and shout out to everyone. So hopefully, Essie Jehudi Ma'at is in the building. Yeah, Jehudi, actually, about last night. So the videos that I was playing came from Jehudi Ma'at's channel. Just replaying a couple of those selections from his archives. So yeah, that was basically how the night went. And man, and I wanted to share them because a little bit earlier before going live, I came across them again, and I was on the floor laughing. Just to see the time pass by and to look at those again, it's just like I said, it's funny, but it's not funny. And so last night, want to kind of lighten the load up, but at the same time, point out the fact that these things as we see as funny, it's not funny at the same time, if that makes sense, because it's kind of sad that people make claims, and those were outright kind of comical claims. But then, even today, there's people that make claims that are not so outright, sound crazy sounding or whatever the case is. Like the brother was saying that there is no sun in the sky. It's really inside the earth, and the sun that we see in the sky is really a projection. See, stuff like that is just blatantly insane. And we would laugh at that. But then there's claims that are not so blatant. And so one of the points I made last night was that regardless of how blatant something may or ridiculous something may seem or not, we need to really cultivate the skills of discernment, skills of knowing the proper tools and methods to discern and to weigh and judge claims. We really have to brush up on that. All right, and so that was my message last night in the midst of the fun. Okay, so hopefully you all have that takeaway. If you didn't take away anything else, definitely take that away. So whatever you have to do to brush up on your skills of knowing what tools to use, when to use them, and to use them correctly on making judgments and discerning claims and statements and all kinds of things, information, period. All right, we really have to do better. But as I said, what I want to go through tonight is a result of the tail end of last night. So this came up. The land of the blacks came up. You know, the whole Kim meaning black, Kemet meaning black land, and all of that. So what I said last night, actually two people asked me if I didn't mind to go over it specifically as a separate stream. And so here I am. All right. So I'm just giving you all context, a bit of context of what I'm doing here live right now. All right. So this is what I'm going to go through. And this is very basic. So this is not rocket science. I'm not about to break open the secrets to quantum field theory, or the secrets to the universe, where we can create this ninth dimension or anything like that. Everything that I'm about to mention is nothing new. It's old. It's been talked about before, not only by myself but by others and things like that. So this is basically kind of like a review all in one place, and we should be pretty quick with this. All right. So now, what I'm going to rely on, though, which will help me be brief, is basic using logic. I'm going to use logic, and we're going to walk through this discussion. All right. This quick discussion. And I know some of y'all saying right now, well, Wujao, the word quick discussion and Wujao does not mix. I always get blamed to be long-winded. All right, so let's just jump on in. But shout out to everybody. I see some other folks have tuned in. So we have Son David, Rouge F, M, Shemis, Sakir Netcher, Hotep. Haven't seen our good brother David in a while. Hotep to the brother Alex. And who else? Did I miss anybody? I already acknowledged Strife. We have Eloxel 7, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Peace. Who else? That's it. And of course, my co-host Emikeraku Kinshai Akinyi is in the chat, holding it down. All right, so let's just jump in. Now I need you all to follow. So I'm gonna be engaging you all in the chat. And as you all know, there's always a lag from the moment I say something till the time you hear it and then respond. So, and that really kind of irks my nerves when that happens. But we're gonna deal with it. But I want some interaction. I want some engagements. All right. So I want you all to follow me on this basic, very basic logic. So let's just dive in, and let me remove the chat off the screen. All right. So as you can see on the screen now, we have land of the blacks, Egypt or Sudan. So we have the flag, the national flag of Egypt on the upper left, and the flag of Sudan on the bottom right. All right. So, in case you've never seen or don't remember the flags of those two countries. Now, Egypt is on the continent of Africa, and so is Sudan. Okay, and as a matter of fact, I should start off by showing a map, a modern map of these locations. So let me pull that up. I actually did not have that pulled up. Shame on me. But let me pull up a Egyptian map that hopefully has Sudan. And just think, when I need an Egyptian and Sudanese map, I can't find one. So let me go look up Northeast Africa. Northeast Africa. I just want to put things in perspective in terms of visuals. Where's the map that I can see all of? All right, this will do. Doesn't have to be perfect. Oh, maybe this one's even better. Northeast Africa. Let's see. Yeah. Well, nah. All right. I'm not gonna be picky. I'm not gonna be picky. I'm just gonna choose this one. Nope, can't do that one. Every map I'm looking at has a watermark on it. So I am just trying to find a basic map. Why can't, and it's crazy because when I don't need it. All right, here's one. Just get a basic idea. Here we go. Basic. I'm sure you all, you all can Google any map and pull it up yourself. But for the sake of the conversation, let me get this up here on the screen. So we're all on the same page. All right, and that's extremely small, so that's not helping them make it bigger. All right, so just so y'all get an idea of what we're dealing with. Hopefully y'all can see it on the screen. So we're talking about these two countries. Modern day, we know them to be the Arab Republic of Egypt and the Republic of Sudan. All right. So both of them are on the continent of Africa, and both of them are considered Northeast Africa, and Egypt is north of Sudan, Sudan being south of Egypt. All right, so now we are very, very clear on that, where these places are. So we're talking about location and where they are on the globe. All right, easy enough. So again, to go back, we're talking about the land of the blacks, Egypt or Sudan. So picking up where I began last night, the statements that I made last night is that for several decades now, several decades, really since the dawn of Egyptology, pretty much, there's been a question as to the identity of the ancient Egyptians. And we know in early Egyptology, there was a climate of racism, for sure. I don't think anyone disputes that fact. And within Egyptology, you had the dynastic race theory and all those good things. And we talked about that on this channel. We talk about that quite a bit on this channel. So if you want a detailed discussion, you definitely can check out our archives. We actually did a book in the book club that really went over that, did a very good job of that. So I definitely suggest you get on board with the book club, and maybe MEK can put the links to the book club in the chat for your reference. So what I was saying last night was that all along we had this black identity in Northeast Africa, and it just wasn't Egypt. Okay, instead of it being Egypt, it was actually Sudan, what we now call Sudan. And so what I summarized last night was that at all times, without any argument, without any debating, without any fussing, and without any fighting, Sudan has consistently been seen as the land of the blacks and not Egypt. So hence what you see on the screen, land of the blacks, Egypt or Sudan. Now the only reason why I have that this or that question is because like I said, consistently Sudan has been acknowledged and been advocated as the land of blacks, as the land of the blacks. But instead of focusing on that, what the air quote we have been doing, we focused on Egypt being the land of blacks. So instead of looking at what was acknowledged and what was consistently said as the land of blacks and the people being black and so on and so forth, which is Sudan, we ignored all of that and we focused on Egypt, and we wanted Egypt to be the land of the blacks and the land of blacks, and then the people themselves being black. Now we wanted that to be the case so much so that up until this very day, people are still arguing over it. But no one's doing the same thing with Sudan, and the reason why is very, very basic. It's because there's never been any dispute about that. There's never been any dispute about that. So, what I want to do is just kind of fill in some details with all that. And that was the summary I kind of gave last night. So, I just want to fill in some details about that. All right. So, and give some reasoning behind it. So, we're all walking down this logical procedure using reasoning, everything. Now, long ago, I did a Facebook post, and I say long ago, like the opening of comic books, long ago, once upon a time. But I did a post speaking about Nubia, and if anybody's been around me, or you already familiar with me, you know that I have years of this thing about using the word Nubia and Nubian. You know, I always said it's a misnomer. We shouldn't use it, and so on and so forth. You know, I give all my explanations for years. And so I did like a Facebook post years ago as well. And so this is some of the text from my Facebook post. And I'm not going to read it all, but the gist of what I've always said is that Nubia is really a detrimental way of using this term to deal with the people and the location south of Egypt. Okay, because the ancient Egyptians never called their southern neighbors Nubians, and they never called their southern, the territory south of them, Nubia. And my point that I wanted to drive home with all these different posts that I made over the years was that if we were to just call these places and people what the ancient Egyptians called these places and people, we wouldn't be confused. We can actually match up and follow the historical timelines and what the Egyptians wrote about who, what, where, when, why, how, and so on and so forth. We don't have to guess anything, you know. And so I made a post to re-identify who the Egyptians were familiar with and what they called them. So I did this post here, and also I named quite a few people here. And so what I said is attested names of the lands and people known to the ancient Remich, the Remich being the ancient Egyptians themselves. And so I have Kash, we know as Cush, Wawat, Ket Nefer, Majau, Nehesi, Chehinu, Keftiu, Nehut, etc. So you can go down the list and see. And my point was, let these people be, or this place be what it is, and let the people be who they are. So let Kash be what it is, and let the people be who they are. Let Wawat be what it is, and let the people be who they are, etc. Okay, and so I've made those statements over and over and over and over again. Now, what's interesting, which ties into this conversation, is the term Nehes, Nehesi, and Nehesiu. We have Nehes, Nehesi, and Nehesiu. All right, all different forms of the same word. All right. Now, Ever since the late 1800s and early 1900s, this term, or these three terms, Nehes, Nehesi, and Nehesiu, have all been translated as black consistently. All right. From the late 1800s. Now remember, Egyptology didn't start, the discipline, Egyptology didn't start till 1822. Okay. So this is still early. This is still early. So 50 years after the beginning, the genesis of Egyptology, these scholars and experts in Egyptology translated this term Nehes, Nehesi, and Nehesiu as black. All right. Now, so I'm going to show you. This is coming from, and let me make sure y'all can see it on the screen. I'm doing all this talking, and if you can't see it on the screen, okay. So this is coming from Ernest Alfred Wallace Budge, or E.A. Wallace Budge, book text called An Egyptian Reading Book for Beginners. This was published in 1896. So remember I said the late 1800s and the early 1900s. So this falls within that time range. So this is from Budge's book, where he defines or translates these words as I claimed it to be. So we have Nehes here, and this is the toponym, Nes. Okay, so this is the place name, Nehes. And you see the glyphs here, 1, 2, 3, 4 glyphs. There's a composite glyph there of a throw sticks and the triple hill, but we'll count those as 4 glyphs. This is the word Nehes, and you see that Budge translates it as Negro land. And we know that the word Negro means black. Okay, it is the Spanish word or the Romance word for black. Negro. All right, both Spanish and French. Then we have, so we would say this as black land. All right. Now this is not Egypt. This is the territory south of Egypt, modern day Sudan. All right. Always keep that in mind in this discussion. Okay. These are experts. E.A. Wallace Budge was an expert, an Egyptologist, a philologist. He was the curator of the British Museum, and he is a person who wrote a plethora of books in early Egyptology that a lot of people are indebted to. Okay, it's coming from that guy. Okay, as a matter of fact, let me do this. Well, I'll do that a little later. So that's Nehes as the place name. Next, we have Nehes as a word referring to people. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 glyphs within this group of Sesh, or the glyphs. We have 6, and they spell out the word Nehes as well. All right, he translates this word as Negroes. Now we know the word Negroes is plural for Negro, and it means blacks, plural. Negro meaning black, Negroes would be plural. All right, for blacks. So here we have black land, and here we have blacks, as in black people. So one's talking about the place, and one's talking about the people. Okay, now mind you, this was published in 1896. There was no dispute of this, and there's still no dispute of this. Now, here's where I come in and make my argument that I showed you on for years, that I've been talking about this term Nubia and Nubian. So what has happened since the time of Budge, since the late 1800s and early 1900s, in everywhere in those Egyptological works from the late 1800s, early 1900s, everywhere where you see the word Negro and Negroes in modern scholarship, they just changed the word Negro and Negroes for the word Nubian. So this is now stylized as Nubia. Okay, so instead of saying Negro land, this set of glyphs for Nehes is translated as Nubia. This set of glyphs here, Nehes, referring to people, is now translated as Nubians. So all they did was swap words, the form of the word. Okay, that's it. And that creates a problem, but that's a separate discussion. So I don't really want to have that discussion right now because I mean I've had that before, but we could talk about that another time. That's going to lead us down a different pathway. So just keep in mind that Nehes as a place name is called Black Land. Nehes referring to people are called blacks. So we have the blacks right here and we have the black land. Black land and blacks. Okay, so just remember that. And remember what we're dealing with. We're talking about this area here, south of Egypt, Sudan. So now let's just focus on consistency. So this is from the 1896, what I just showed you. That's from 1896. So around about the same time, remember I said late 1800s, early 1900s. So we're all in the same time range. Around the same time, there are other books. This is a book entitled Archaeologia or Archaeologia or Miscellaneous Tracts Relating to Antiquity. This particular volume is 52, volume number 2. Excuse me, volume 52, issue 2. And I believe that's backwards. I believe it's issue number 52, volume 2. So, you know, just in case you need to look at it. As a matter of fact, I can post it on the screen. This is coming from page 419. And so the relevant information is in the footnote. Here, footnote E. And I'll just read it. It says the country of Wawa, which is what these glyphs spell out, Wawa, was situated in Ethiopia to the east of the modern town of Korosko. It is mentioned in the inscription of Una, line 16, where it is described as a black land, where it has Negro. You see Negro there again? So we know Negro is black. So it's described as Negro land or black land. And then it gives the glyphs as it is found in the inscription of Una. And I'm going to show you that inscription in a second. So here we see Wawat Nehes. That's what these glyphs are. Wawat Nehes. All right. And then it goes on to say, in the list of 10 Hathors printed by Bruch in a dictionary, geographical dictionary, whatever, page 1367, after Hathor Lady of Aneb, we have Hathor Lady of Kakau. All right. So that's the whole footnote. I just wanted to read the whole footnote. But the pertinent information is the fact that Wawa, as mentioned in this particular text, that this is a footnote of, is referring to Wawat, which is a black land, a place in the territory being called the black land. All right. So mind you, none of this to this very day is disputed. Nobody's doing YouTube videos. Nobody's going live every day, twice a day, 4 and 5 times a week. No one's doing papers. No one's trying to set up, debates about this. Nothing. But right here in our face, we have a location and we have a people that's related to this whole blackness. But we didn't gravitate towards that. We didn't focus on that. Okay? That which is obvious. We are focused on Egypt. People have been focused on Egypt and have been trying to make Egypt what this is. So now keep following me on this logic now. Okay. So now just to kind of give some filler. Remember, this is coming from line 16 of the inscription of Una. So let me just show you how that looks. And it's actually right here. So we have line 16. This is number 16. And these are the glyphs for it. So we have what you saw on that page. So we have Wawat Nehes. All right. Now, as I pointed out last night, without getting into a Sesh Netcher language class, what I want to point out though are these 6 glyphs: the water ripple, the twisted flax, the folded cloth, and we have 3 identical squatting figures with a feather on the head and a curved beard. Okay, they call it a royal beard, beard of divinity, etc., etc. All right. So look at this set of glyphs. You, even if you don't know what they transliterate to or what have you, but just to let you know, it transliterates to Nehes. All right. But these glyphs, so you see them 4 times. You see a group here, group number 1, group number 2, group number 3, and group number 4. At least on this page, we see them 4 times. All right. And what this is showing is that in this text, at this portion of the text, it's talking about locations, and it's identifying these 4 places within the overall larger region. Okay, so in other words, this place here, Jam, is considered Nehes. We have another place here, Imam, or Yam, as some people, you may see it spelled or said Yam, or Yamam. This is also Nehes. Then you have Wawat is also Nehes. And then you have Ka'u is also Nehes. So Wawat, so we have Jam, Imam, Wawat, and Ka'u, all considered within a territory being called black land or black people. So if this term, now let's go back to the budge, and we're going to look at this exact term here that I have the arrow here. These are referring to the people as blacks. What you see on the screen is Negroes, and we know Negroes is blacks, right? So this is saying Jam, blacks. Imam, blacks. Wawat, blacks. Ka'u, blacks. All right. So mind you, again, this has been published since the late 1800s. Okay. This hasn't been disputed. There's no debates set up around any of this stuff. There's no arguments. You don't see people's YouTube live streams with titles in it trying to debate this stuff here. Okay. And I'm gonna keep driving that point home because this is uncontested. All right. And blatant and in our face. But we ignore it. Instead, we want to focus on Egypt. And we want to make Egypt out to be this, as blatant as this stuff. All right. So let's just move forward a bit. Now, let's go back to this map here. Now I have a question. So I'm gonna turn my attention to the chat. So again, shout out to the chat, whoever's tuned in. If I miss shouting you out earlier, that's because you weren't here yet. So anyway, I'm gonna ask a question to the chat. What is the Arabic name of Sudan? All right, now like I said, I know there's a slight delay and lag. All right. But I'm gonna ask. I want to know the answer from one of you guys. What is the name of Sudan? What is the country Sudan? What is it called natively, or at least presently now, in the Arabic language? What is Sudan named for? Okay, Kinesis says, shout out to Kinesis, El Sudan, something like that. That's true. Yep. There's only one other word prior before that. But let me share. Let me look it up. Let me pull it up. Let's do this together. Let's do this together. Yep. Let us do this together. Let us do it together. I'm gonna share my screen because I want you all to follow along with this. So I'm gonna share my screen a few times here. We're gonna do this together. Walk through this together. Give me a second. As y'all can see, I just don't like that awkward silence. So I'm just talking through while I'm clicking, and we're gonna put this on the screen. All right, we're gonna make it big. All right, Sudan. So here's Sudan. Oh, and that is definitely not big enough for you all to see. Let me make this bigger. Okay, y'all should definitely be able to read it now. Okay, so Sudan, Arabic is As Sudan. All right, the El Sudan, but the L changes to the character that comes after it or the sound that comes after it. So instead of saying El Sudan, they say As Sudan. It says officially the Republic of Sudan, Jumhuriyat as Sudan, is a country in Northeast Africa. Now let's skip down to the etymology of the word. And I made this so big. All right, let's skip to the etymology. All right, here's the etymology of the word. The country's name, Sudan, is a name given historically to the large Sahel region of West Africa to the immediate west of modern-day Sudan. Historically, Sudan referred to both the geographical region stretching from Senegal on the Atlantic coast to northeastern Africa and the Republic of Sudan. So that whole strip was historically referred to as Sudan. The name derives from the Arabic Belad as-Sudan, or the land of the blacks. Okay? So now, as I always recommend people who use Wikipedia or any encyclopedia for that matter, whenever you see superscripted numbers, definitely always check out the citation, the sources of the citations when you have the time. Okay, always do that. Always do that. So fortunately, we could just hover and you see it. I don't know if y'all see that hover on the screen when I hover it. Can y'all see that? When I hover, does it show up? I can't even see it at the same time. But anyway, so that's coming from a 1959 publication, International Association of History of Religions, etc. Okay, and so Balad es Sudan, or the land of the blacks. So now, what does this mean? So now I'm gonna go back to my screen here. Mind you, these are experts in Egyptology. Okay, this is E.A. Wallace Budge, who was an expert in Egyptology, etc., etc., etc. You have Griffith, expert Egyptologist, was an expert in Egyptology, and so on and so forth. All of these people translated the word Nehes as blacks, and the Hesi term, as far as the place name, is the land of blacks or black land. Okay, these are coming from the experts now. Okay, so what they're telling us, what these experts are telling us, is that the ancient Egyptians called their southern neighbors blacks. Okay, because these are ancient Egyptian glyphs. And for all intent and purposes, these are ancient Egyptian words. This is what the ancient Egyptians recorded in terms of naming the people south of them and naming the territory south of them. So the Egyptians called the people south of them the Nehisiu. The experts translate that as the blacks. All right, y'all follow me so far? The ancient Egyptians called the territory south of them, not their own, but the territory south of them, black land, or the land of those blacks, the region of those blacks. And the experts say that it means black land. Okay, this is not coming from Wujau. I'm quoting the experts. Okay, these are late 1800, early 1900 experts, the authorities. According to them, the Egyptians called their southern neighbors blacks. The territory they lived in, land of the blacks, or black land. Now, now let's skip to modern times, or at least medieval Arab times. During medieval Arab times, the Arabs referred to this same area, but even in a larger area, as we just read, the land of the blacks, Bilad es Sudan, the land of the blacks. Okay, so all the way, and Sudan as a country is still named Sudan. We call, the area south of Egypt today, this very day, we still call it Sudan. So what I'm pointing out is this consistency here, from ancient Egyptian times to medieval Arab times to modern times. Okay? It's been consistently identified with something related to black. Now, everything I just said, nothing is new. I'm not telling you anything new. This is not rocket science. The point here, the takeaway here, is that this has been in our face the entire time. So, but instead of us looking at that and rolling with it, we put our attention on Egypt and not Sudan. We don't claim Sudan like that. We don't argue for claiming rights and ancestral rights and stuff when it comes to Sudan. We claim Egypt. You got people walking around thinking they're direct descendants of the ancient Egyptians, by way of Walter Williams. By the way, Walter Williams is one of those advocates of that, and anybody who follows his line of thinking, coming out of that. There's a lot of people, I'm sure you all have heard and seen people on YouTube, Facebook, what have you, who believe that the ancient Egyptians, they will say those are our ancestors. And they believe that they're direct descendants of the Egyptians, and they want to be Egyptian, et cetera, et cetera. This is the big fuss now. You got people arguing over Egyptomania, quote unquote Egyptomania. People walking around. People feel like people want to be Egyptian or Egyptian. So you have people who are arguing that, against that, saying, "Oh, you Negroes here in America, or you African Americans in America, you're not Egyptians, you're West African." That's that whole argument that you're hearing right now. So the point there is that people are focused on Egypt and making claims to it. But yet the experts and the consistency throughout history has been that if you're looking for black, if you're looking for a label of black people and a label of black land and all that kind of stuff, then you're a little bit, let me put the map back up. You're a little bit too high on the longitude or latitude, whichever one goes across left and right. The longitude, I believe. Latitude, ladder, up and down. I always get confused with that, so somebody keep me honest. But you're a little bit too high on the longitude or latitude. You need to take it down a little bit if you're looking for something to cling on to in terms of claiming blackness and claiming everything, where everything fits. Because we have the historical continuity, we have the experts saying it is so, and then we have the modern day name reflecting it. Do y'all follow that? Anciently, historically, expertly, and modernly. All four of those areas are consistent. And on top of that, No one is arguing against it. No one's fussing about that. No one. All right, but I'm going to add to that. I'm going to add a fifth element to that. That was four. I'm going to add a fifth element to it, which is visualization. So now we're going to visualize what the Egyptians, how their southern neighbors, and how did the ancient Egyptians represent neighbors in their compared to them. So here's my question to the chat. When it came to the ancient Egyptians depicting themselves, and then the ancient Egyptians depicting their southern neighbors, who did they depict darker or blacker or black? Did they depict themselves as black, or did they depict their southern neighbors as black? Which one was darker? That's my question to the chat. That is my question to the chat. Let me put the chat back on the screen. I want to see some answers. I'm going to repeat the question. In the artwork of ancient Egypt, did the ancient Egyptians paint themselves or their southern neighbors darker? Which one is darker? Now, Black Egyptian, first of all, shout out to you. Let me put your comment on the screen. You say that depends on what tomb you're talking about. No, there's only one tomb that would warrant a statement, any statement outside of what I'm asking. That's the tomb of Ramses III. All right. That is the only tomb where, at least where the Book of Gates are, where you have the so-called Table of Nations, which is really not that, but that's what people like to call it. That is the only tomb, the one and only tomb where you'll see the Remich and the Nehesiu looking identical. So we're aware of that. And that's in the tomb of Ramses III. Nowhere else. All right, so just want to make sure that we definitely cover that. So my question is, in the 3,000 plus years of ancient Egyptian history and their surviving artwork that we can still see to this very day, did the Egyptians paint themselves darker than their southern neighbors, or did they paint their southern neighbors darker than themselves? The question is fairly straightforward and fairly easy. All right. And I'm surprised that I'm not seeing any answers. I mean, because look, if you all had time and if I had the time, which I don't, we can go through a statistical analysis right here live. We can pull up thousands of pictures of different artifacts, walls, and so on and so forth from Egypt right now, and we could walk from dynasty to dynasty. We can go from the old kingdom and start working our way towards the present, towards the end of Egypt. And we can do a statistical analysis, and we can see that what we're going to end up with is 99% of the adult males of ancient Egyptians' depiction is in a reddish brown pigment. And whenever they depict people south of them, they used a different pigment from the ones that they use for themselves. It's very, very consistent. It's very, very consistent. So the point here is that the ancient Egyptians called the territory south of them Ta Nehisi. Ta meaning region or land, and Nehisi, the experts say, means black. Okay, the land of the blacks, or you could say black land. So Ta-Nehisi can be said as being black land or land of the blacks. Then the word Nehisiu is, by the experts' account, it means blacks. The Egyptians depicted the people south of them darker than themselves. All right. So I want everybody to understand that they depict them darker than themselves. So let's quickly do this real quick, because I don't want to take up time, but at the same time I don't want any room for any games at this point. So here we have a fourth dynasty example. I'm just going to run through a couple of examples. Like I said, we could spend hours on this. I don't have the time to do it, but it can be done. All right, just not tonight. I have thousands of pictures. I have gigabytes of images and whatnot. But I'm gonna quickly go through a couple of these. Fourth dynasty depiction of an ancient Egyptian. Just pay attention to the visuals. All right. This is coming from the fifth dynasty. All right. I want y'all to pay attention to this reddish brown pigment. Reddish brown pigment. Again, 99% of all the artwork of adult males in ancient Egypt. I'm not talking about the women, because the women were painted in the variations of yellow. Okay. But the men were painted with this reddish brown pigment. All right, I just want y'all to understand that. Fifth dynasty. Now there's another fifth dynasty. All right, see, you can see the yellow of the woman, that's where her arms wrapped around the leg on the right, and then the male is reddish brown. You see the people here on the left, same thing. Here's a more close-up shot. All right, just want y'all to understand. Moving to the sixth dynasty, reddish brown. Sixth dynasty, reddish brown. Look at all the reddish brown you see in the back. I'm gonna quickly go through these because I don't want to spend too much time. Sixth dynasty, Mastaba of Mer F Nebef and his wife. See, she's yellow, he's reddish brown. All right, let's keep it moving. Now we move to the 12th dynasty. All right, 12th dynasty, reddish brown. Now I want y'all to notice the alternation in the hue of the reddish brown on the group on the left. The ancient Egyptian artists did that to show groupings or to show quantity. All right, they altered the colors to alternate, so it won't be all bodged together. All right, and matter of fact, there's a lot of scholarly works on ancient art that explains all of this good stuff that I am skipping. Another one, 18th dynasty, reddish brown. 20th dynasty, reddish brown. Now we get up here on the left, reddish brown. I believe, if I can see this name correctly, this is the tomb of Seti the First, I believe. But on the right hand side, you have pictures of people from Ta-Nehisi. Okay, people from Ta-Nehisi. Let's see. Do I have another one? All right, here's some more. So here is different depictions. So notice that the person in the top left is a person from Kush. You see the name Kush or Kash in the glyphs in front of his face. Look how he's depicted. All right. Just want y'all to understand that. And there's more on there too. I don't have their pictures, but you see in front of the Keftiu, which is Crete person. I know y'all can't see my cursor, can you? So I'm sorry. Over here is the Kushite person from Kash or Kush. Then you have over here Keftiu, this person here, but in front of him is another person, and in front of this person is another person that's painted dark as well. All right, so I'm just pointing these things out. Same thing here. Now it's cut off because I'm highlighting these individuals here. Okay, so I'm just pointing these things out. All right. What else do we have here? What else? And then this is the famous tomb of Hoi that a lot of people are familiar with, where you have tribute being paid, and a whole procession and things like that, where you have these people from Ta-Nehisi, the Ta-Nehisi region. All right. So I just want to point these things out. So I just want to go to that real quick as a little detour. I didn't intend on showing this, but since I could quickly show this, I didn't mind doing that. All right. So I want y'all to just make sure you all pay attention to that. Now back to what I was saying though. Let me get back to it. So back to what I was saying. So remember, the experts translate Nehisi as black people. The Nehisi are as black people or Negroes. The experts translate Nehes as a place, the black land, or the land of the blacks. All right. This has been uncontested. Nobody fights about it, and it's been very consistent. So much so that today, Bilad el Sudan has the meaning of land of the blacks. It was for the strip from west to east Africa, but no longer called that. But it's preserved in the country named Sudan to this very day. All right, so y'all follow me on that. All right, so that all being said now, then the question remains: okay, with all of this stuff being blatant and being right here, in front of our eyes that we can still see as I'm showing you, then why was there such a focus on Egypt being everything that I'm showing about Sudan? That's the question. Why is Egypt being argued to be everything that Sudan is being described as by the experts, by the Egyptians, and by modern terms and labels? So I want y'all to notice something, okay? That if we were to lay claim to Sudan, there would be no wrestling, no tug of war, no fighting, no debating on both sides, because that's been very consistent all along. But when it comes to Egypt, people have to wrestle, fuss, and fight for that. So now, here's the what's very interesting, that because there's no fuss when it comes to Sudan and Ta-Nehisi. Now, mind you, remember, Ta-Nehisi is now called Nubia, and the Nehisiu are now called Nubians. Okay, follow me on this now. So, in the middle of the fighting part for Egypt to be what Sudan is described as, now you have seen a change in trajectory in the arguments. Now, this is not recent, but it's fairly recent. So now the arguments changed to make the Nubians the Egyptians. Do y'all follow that? Reason being is because there's no argument about the Nubians being black. Because remember, as a matter of fact, let me put this on the screen, because I really need you all to get this, and because I'm not speaking live with you all, I need to make sure you all understand this. So where can I put this? I'm going to put it right here. So I want y'all to follow me on this. So I got to do my whiteboard thing with y'all, okay? So I want y'all to understand. So we have Nehes. We have Nehes equals Negro, which equals black. All right, which equals Nubian. All of these terms, according to the experts, are synonymous. You're looking at 4 synonyms: Nehes, Negro, black, and Nubian. So we've established our equation. It's a 4-term equation. All of these terms equal to each other. All right. Now, none of this is contested. This is not debated. As I pointed out, from ancient times to the dawn of Egyptology by the expert, well, actually from ancient times to medieval Arabs and their conquests and things and their labeling procedures and stuff, methods, to early Egyptologists, to the modern day. This has been consistent. Only thing that changed is the politically correct term. We don't really use Negro and Negroes anymore. Today we say Black or Nubian. Okay, that's all the same. So now, Egypt. So that's unattested. So now, because Egypt doesn't have the same uncontested consistency, we have to fight to make Egypt. We have to fight to do this. I'm gonna put it like that. I can't even make it's supposed to be the not equal sign, and so it's not equal. So I'm gonna put not equal. So Egypt is not synonymous with these other ones here. So we have to fight right here. So we have to fight for this. This is where the fight is. We have to fight to make this true. Okay, we have to fight and fuss to make this true. And in the tactics to try to make this, to try to fit Egypt in this equation, what people are doing or have done is now they're trying to make Nubians equal Egyptians in some form or fashion. They're trying to make Nubians Egyptians. That's why you hear all this talk about, and as a matter of fact, and I'm sure you all have seen this, where people will tie in the conversations of Kemet Kush. They'll call it Ethiopia Kushite. Ethiopia Kushite. Kemet Ethiopia Kushite. They'll merge all of that into one and say they're one. Kemet, Kush, Ethiopia. They'll do that. And I'm sure you all have seen it in some form or fashion. And they'll make them the same. They say, oh, the Nubians and Egyptians were the same. They were the same. But they were not. And this goes back to my Facebook post where the only reason why people can say that is because people have swallowed the banana coming out of that tailpipe. They're falling for the banana in the tailpipe with this swap with this word Nubian. Now, here's the thing. Here's the trick. The ancient Egyptians never called their southern neighbors Nubians. The ancient Egyptians had two prominent cities called Nub or Nubet, which to them meant gold. Okay, so these were cities of gold or gold towns. And on the modern maps, you can see them as Ombos and Kom-Ombo. But both cities, Ombos and Kom-Ombo, are within the borders of Egypt to this very day. These two cities called Nubet or Nubt, are not beyond the borders of Egypt in ancient times or in modern times. I don't know what their Arabic names are today, but look up Ombos, O-M-B-O-S, and Kom-Ombo, K-O-M-O-M-B-O. Look those two cities up. And you'll see that the indigenous name for those two cities was connected to gold, Nub or Nubet. But the point here is that those are within the borders of Egypt. And so if anybody were to be anglicized, if we were to anglicize or Romanize that term Nubet, we would say Nubian for those two cities. And so the people who lived in those two cities would be, even though they weren't, but they would be called Nubians. But guess what? They would be Egyptians. All right? Now, but that's not the Nehisiu. The Nehisiu at all times were people south of the Egyptian border. So you see the trick? Because they equated Nubian with the Nehisiu people, whenever we talk about the original Nubians that lived in those two cities I just mentioned, people confuse the two, because the original Nubians of those two cities are in fact and indeed Egyptian. But the Nehisiu people are not Egyptian. But so when people make the claim that the Nubians are Egyptians, they're falling for the trick. And they don't mind falling for the trick. Why? Because people are fussing and fighting and arguing, trying to make Egypt equal these other things here. So they don't mind the slippage of sticking in Nubian in there and saying Nubians equal Egyptians. See, down here, when you say Nubian equal Egyptians, or let me put it up here. When I say Nubians equal Egyptians of here, and this is a true statement, what I'm talking about is the place called Nubt. All right. It's a place called Nubet or Nubt, which translates as Gold Town. Just to be clear, this is within the Egyptian borders. But down here, when you see Nubians equal black, Negro, and Nahis, this is talking about the people south of Egypt that were seen as foreigners to the Egyptians. They're not the same. Okay, they're not the same. So when people argue that the Nubians are Egyptians, if they just say that, then you think they're talking about these up here. But they're not. They're trying to imply that the people south of Egypt are Egyptians as well. All in the larger context of forcing the Egyptians to inherit the description and accolades of the Nehisiu as seen throughout the historical continuity of what I explained earlier. The ancient Egyptians, the word Nehes and Nehesiu and Ta Nehesi is translated by the experts now as black people and black land. Black people, black land. Black people, black land. The experts are doing that. So all those people who appeal to authority now, don't run from it now. Accept what the experts say. The experts are telling you that the land of the blacks is south of Egypt, that the black people are south of Egypt. That's what the experts say. Now people can cherry pick, but hey, grab your bucket and have cherry juice then. But don't come and say that all of this is not the case or not true when it's right in our face. All right. So with that, just as you know, just to show you all who we are dealing with, let me just put a couple of pictures up here. So these are the experts I'm talking about. So here's E.A. Wallace Budge. He is a capable and qualified expert, was a capable qualified expert. And then you have Francois Griffith, another capable and qualified expert. All right. Then you have, and I don't have the picture right now. Maybe I'll show it another time. you have others that were around the same era of time. Now, I'm speaking about the late 1800s and early 1900s. All of the scholarship during that time reflects this sentiment by the experts. All the experts of that day and time were telling you and telling us, telling me that that the Egyptians referred to the people south of them as blacks, and the land south of them as the black land, or land of the blacks, the land where these black people dwelled, these black people lived. All right, not Egypt. So we are a little bit too high on the longitude around the globe. We need to go down a little bit if we're gonna make these claims. All right. So let me put the chat back up here. I want to hear from you all on the chat. I want to make sure you all follow what I just said so far. I'm gonna back up a bit because I think Black Egyptian, uh, who has the glyphs Ta Shemau next to their name. What looks like. Let's see. So we got American Dream in the building. So, shout out to everybody who's tuned in. I gave shout outs earlier, but I'm just trying to get into the comments now. So if you had a comment earlier, while I was sharing the screens just now, I could not see the chat. So I am trying to catch up on y'all. All right. So Christopher Withers, correct. Southern neighbors are depicted as being darker. That is absolutely correct. Elox, I am not concerned on the answer. I sway though. They paint themselves. Oh, I always thought they paint themselves black. What about the tomb or gallery that Anthony Browder, probably talking about Anthony Browder, not Anthony Brown, recently discovered? Um, you have to name the tomb. I'm not sure if you're talking about Kerkaka Amun. I believe that's the name. Kerkaka Amun tomb. They're the reddish. It's the reddish brown pigment in that tomb. Let's keep going. So Black Egyptian says, Seshu, is the reddish brown for Egyptians reality or artistic canon? It's an artistic canon. All right, so that answers that one. It's an artistic canon, as they did with everybody. Um, so they did the same with the Nehes. I'm not sure what the same would be. Oh, to show distinction. Yes, they sure did. The alternation of slightly lighter, slightly darker between a large group of figures in any particular vignette is an artistic canon, in terms of um, showing a multitude of people, a group. Please show the Battle of Kadesh as the ethnicities are all mixed. Okay, the Battle of Kadesh. I'm not even sure if there's a very good color representation of that, because you have a lot of reproductions of that. Okay, so I'm gonna round back and come back to that, because we gotta be mindful of um, the reproductions, because the images I have, they're not the actual images, the primary source for photographs and things like that. They're not colorized like that. Okay, so keep that in mind. Who is that? That's Strife. All right, so keep that in mind. Um, okay, so Black Egyptian. Since that's the case, is it fair to deduce that the inhabitants of southern Egypt share many phenotypical affinities with those in northern Sudan? Um, yeah, I mean, outside of phenotype, see, I don't even want to get into phenotype and genotype, because this is not a DNA conversation at all, and I don't want to deflect into a DNA conversation, because that's what a lot of people tend to do, and this is why you know the conversation never gets to a point where it's understood and settled. Okay, the point that I'm making here is that there is a, so listen very closely to my point. because I said all the things I said, last night and just now, right? Here's my bottom line point, that we are up here today in 2022 after over 50 years of arguing, fussing, and fighting about the identity of the ancient Egyptians in an anachronistic way of saying that they're black, to include ourselves with them and they with us. We have people today claiming to be direct descendants of ancient Egyptians. We have African Americans claiming to be direct descendants of ancient Egyptians. You have African Americans who are calling ancient Egyptians their ancestors. However they mean by that, they do it. You have people who are trying to actually be ancient Egyptians here in America right now. You have people who are hell bent on defining even the word Kemet as the land of blacks, as if they named their country out of being motivated or inspired by their skin color. All of that's going on still to this very day. Yet, right next to that, all of that fussing and wrestling and kicking up dust, right next to that is the peaceful, calm, no fussing, no fighting, and continuous, blatant, and overt black of the Sudan from ancient times. And I just walked through it. We have the experts translating Nehes as Negro and Negroes, which we know is black and blacks. The land, Ta-Nehisi, as black land, or the land of the blacks. That's all been there the whole time. So the fussing side didn't gravitate towards that, because all you gotta do is just accept it, because it's laid out. But instead, we go and fuss about Egypt where it's not laid out. It's not laid out by the Egyptians. It's not laid out by the experts. And it's not laid out by modern times. So we have the continuity. We don't have the continuity on the other thing. And so because of that dynamic that's in place, now you have people trying to make the right-hand side, which is peaceful and already black. Now they're trying to bring that over on the left-hand side with Egypt by saying the Nubians are Egyptians, because they're taking advantage of the okie doke banana and tailpipe when the scholars started to change the word Negro to the word Nubian in their scholarly works. After maybe 1932, after around the 1930s, if you look at scholarly works from 1930 forward, and somebody can keep me honest, but I'm just guessing off the top of my head, from around 1930s onward, they started to translate the word Nehes to Nubian. And no longer Negro. This is way later, and I think I'm giving way extra years when I say 1930s. I'm gonna double check that to be accurate, but somebody could keep me honest on that. All right, so let's keep going down. I'm trying to keep on going down. Emiket says, "How do you differentiate black from black? Black Egyptian." They were Nubians before they became Egyptians. Okay, that's just a smiley face there. Black Egyptian says, but I asked the question, you answered with the question. Okay, I'm not sure. See, you all have, oh, you said no, Sesh. So I'll tell you what, wait. We can nip this right now. We can nip this right now because I don't want to confuse anything. So look, I'm posting the panel link in the chat. The panel link is in the chat and it's pinned. So Black Egyptian, if you wanted to, because I don't want to misconstrue, because there's a lot of comments and I know people tend to have comments. I mean, people in the chat, sometimes the chat takes a life of its own, right? And so it makes it easier If any of y'all want to come on the panel, everybody's welcome. First come, first serve. I get 10 people in here, so first come, first serve. Click the link. But I'm gonna keep on reading. You said you answered a question with a question, so you got to remind me on that. Strife. Okay, that's to Emmy Cat. I'm just trying to get down this list here. Rami the second, by the way, just so we're on the same page. Oh, okay, y'all are still talking about something different. Black Egyptian, seeing that the people of Lower Ta Nahisi and the people of Upper Kemet were in close proximity, is it fair to deduce that those inhabitants share many phenotypical affinities? Oh, yeah. So you still again. So I'm probably behind. I already addressed that. Phenotypical affinities is not an issue um, that I'm addressing at all, and hopefully I made that clear. All right, and that's the thing. So I want everybody to pay attention to how these conversations go, because what ends up happening is people introduce phenotype and then they go to the other lower level, the next level down to genotype. They'll start talking about genes and start talking about genetic populations and not talking about the things that I am actually talking about and addressing. All right. One thing that we know, it doesn't matter how many phenotypes, how many SNPs that people shared, there was a differentiation made between the Remich Ni Kemet, the people of Kemet, from Ta Nahisi and the Nahisiu. That distinction was made in ancient times, whether we like it or not. Whether they shared phenotype, genotype, or not, there was a distinction made. I want that to be clear. There was a distinction made. All right? The Remich are not the Nahisiu. The Nahisiu are not the Remich. All right, so I want to make sure we're staying and not diverting, not deflecting, or any of that. All right, I see we got Robert Rand in the building. Give me 1 second,
Yes, indeed.
Robert Rand. I want to share. I want to
I ain't in
share
no
this
rush. Keep
because
talking, brother.
okay, I want to share this too because I don't want anybody to deflect the conversation. So now what I'm putting up on the screen is the a representation of primary source. It's not the primary source, obviously, because this is a whiteboard and reproduce glyphs here. So I don't want people to twist this. But this is from primary sources of the Remich speaking about their southern neighbors. Okay? And this is the point. There's distinctions being made by the Egyptians themselves between themselves and their southern neighbors. All of their neighbors, but we're specifically talking about their neighbors to the south in a region that they call Ta Nahisi. You have Ta Mehu, Ta Shemau, Ta Seti, and Ta Nahisi. These are major regions that are known to the ancient Egyptians. And so now we have Black Egyptian in here. So Robert Rand, if you don't mind, I want to give Black Egyptian the floor so that we can be on the same page. Black Egyptian, you got it.
What's up, Hotel? Can you hear me?
Hotep.
Yeah,
Yep, loud and
man.
clear.
I was just making a point that they made a difference, like on a wall, but it's artistic. I'm more interested in how they looked in reality, like in real life, like what.
Oh well, I mean, they're so long ago. I don't think that we would know how they look, but we could probably look at um, the people who are still in the same area if they're their descendants, and see that's what I'm talking about. That's when you get into lineage and DNA inheritance and all that other kind of stuff, which is outside the scope of this conversation.
No, I'm saying though, like we know the Nubians were up in Lower Egypt, right? I mean Upper Egypt, right?
The Ta-Nehisiu are were in modern day Sudan.
What about the Magi and
Yeah,
Pangrade grade?
yeah. The Majayu were also in Ta-Nehisi, that region.
They weren't in Egypt.
Oh yeah, I'm saying the land of Magi, the land, the original
I
location
mean
was
the
in
people.
Ta-Nehisi. Yeah, you have
Talking about
people
the
from
people
that.
though.
Yeah, I think there's like a slight delay between on the audio, but yeah, the people from the area of Magi or Majayu, they did dwell in Egypt, and different times they were used as the vanguards or police force in Egypt. That's pretty much well documented and well known. Yeah,
Were there were the Nehesiu who lived in Egypt?
yeah.
So it was all mixed up. You saying
What do you mean by all mixed up? Like
like
you mean?
Nehesiu was all up in Egypt? Southern people
Yeah,
was
they.
all up in Egypt. Like the
Mhm.
the people that you calling black, that's in a black land, they was also in Egypt mixing with the Egyptians and all that.
That definitely mixing took place between the two people as well documented by the Egyptians themselves. You have Pianki, Taharka, and his whole that whole era of people being all up in Egypt, ruling Egypt from Napata, from where they were all the way on up. And I'm speaking about the 25th dynasty, so-called Black Pharaohs, and so on and so forth. That's why they call them the Black Pharaohs, because they're saying they originate coming from the Black land.
That's a
Even on
Eurocentric
Time
viewpoint
magazine.
though. Agree with that?
Well, it's a well, no, see, the thing is that um there's a consistency that I'm pointing out, and I'm not sure if you're following with that. So,
No, I'm just trying to see where
like
you
for
stand
example,
though.
okay, well, ask me the question. What
I
what
hear
do you
what
want to know
the I hear
specifically
what
on what I stand?
the black pharaoh, right? That's what they said. Do you agree that those were the black pharaohs and that all the other
Um,
pharaohs was like I'm starting to
oh,
see
you got cut
what
off. You said on all the pharaohs was what?
was something else
Uh,
other than what they considered to be black.
no, okay. So if you're asking me for my stance
Yeah.
um is that people need to stop and eliminate the need to anachronistically apply our modern social construct of race backwards in history in ancient times on the Egyptians or anybody of antiquity. That's my personal stance. So the Egyptians were not black, they were not white by our modern use and sense of the word. The only time that we say that they're black or white is only through the
Then
lens of our modern social construct of race, which did not exist in those ancient times, which is why I continually advocate and myself execute the use of the proper names that the Egyptians called themselves: the Remich, the Nehesiu, the Wawatiyu, and so on and so forth, the Majeyu, and so on and so forth. We can never go wrong by doing that. So were they
so
black
the
or not?
Hesu not black.
According no, nobody fits our modern social construct of race. Nobody in ancient times is modern. That's like saying, a person in ancient times has a cell phone or something.
Okay,
So
so
no.
I thought the whole time you was saying like the Nehesi are black and then the Egyptians are. I thought that's what you was saying this whole time.
Okay. Okay, so now you're proving my assumption that you're not following what I'm saying and the points that I'm making. So
So
at
you
all
didn't say
times
the
in what I
Nehesi
said
black.
earlier, no, just listen for a second. I know there's a slight delay between what I'm saying and you're saying, because I don't want to cut you and I don't want you to cut me. So my point is, according to the experts and following their line of reasoning and their logic, So I'm going to repeat this for you. According to the experts that I mentioned and named and showed, according to their reasoning, according to their logic, according to their translations and definitions of these terms, it all
Does
lines
that
up.
matter?
Yes, it does matter because my point
How?
is that they're consistent.
No, I'm
They're
saying like
consistent.
in the
So
scheme of
okay, go
reality,
ahead.
like that's their Eurocentric view. This African, like that's their, because they from Europe. That's how they gonna think. But I mean, does it really matter what they think? Shouldn't we like form our own opinion based off of an African perspective, like like the book? I mean, cause that's kind of like a
Um
Eurocentric view to think like how.
okay, but see, but now you're skipping the point that I'm making, and you're making a different point, and which is fine. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Let's deal with actual reality, as you keep saying, and let's form our own conclusions based on the actual reality. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Um, the our modern social construct of black and white people, did it exist in ancient times during ancient Egyptians' existence?
No,
Okay, so my follow-up question to you are the ancient Egyptians black?
if you ask
Having
me if
said
they're,
no to the first part of the question, if having said no to the first part of that question, my second part of the question is, are the ancient Egyptians therefore black?
if you're asking me if they're black, like in the today, I would say
Well,
yes.
but see,
If you're
you
gonna
shouldn't
put me
have to.
3,000 years ago, if you're gonna take me back 3,000 years ago, I'm gonna say no, we're not black.
Okay,
But if
but
I'm
see, you
looking at
shouldn't have
them
to
today,
say all of that. But hold on. You shouldn't have to say all of that because I was very clear in my question. I said I said two-part question. The first part is our
hmm
modern social construct of race of black and white, did it exist during ancient Egyptian times? You clearly said no. And I said
but see how,
as a follow-up to that, wait, as a follow-up to that, having said no to that, are the ancient Egyptians or were the ancient Egyptians black? See, you don't have to go around and say, well, according to whatever. I already included that in the first part of my question to you. So I'm basing
but you
it on the
see
modern
how
social
the
construct of
first part
race.
of it, all
Go
right,
ahead.
but you see how the first you were specific about a certain time. You said, well, did the ancient, and then you straight up just asked me, were they black? There's like my
No,
time,
as a
are
follow
they
as a
black?
follow as a no. But see, that's an error on your part. Why are you thinking in your time when it's a second follow up to the first question? Like you have to understand. Okay, context. Let me start over then. Let's
Well, you
scratch
want
everything
time
and start over.
specific.
Okay. Well, let me
Okay.
be time specific for the entire question. Okay. I'm gonna start over. Is our modern social construct of race, of black, white, island Pacific, and all that other kind of stuff that we use today, did these constructs exist in ancient times? By ancient times, I'm specifically speaking about the 3,000 plus times period of the ancient Egyptian civilization's existence. Did it exist?
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Now, according to that answer, and according to that to what you answered, were the ancient Egyptians black? Could they possibly be black by our modern social construct terms?
No. But
Okay,
and then that would
so you and
mean
I
that the
agree. You
experts are wrong.
wait. I just want to establish a point of agreement. You and I agree on that because earlier you asked me my stance, and I always like to highlight and point out where people agree. So my stance is in agreement in alignment with yours, that the ancient Egyptians could not and were not black by any modern standards because our modern standards did not exist, and they didn't define themselves as such. They couldn't
So the
possibly do it unless
experts
they
are
were time
wrong.
travelers. The experts that I mentioned earlier. Say it again.
Are labeling the Netcher was black. Yeah, all that's wrong. The translations and the definitions were translated to black and Negro. Like that's all wrong. Do you agree?
Right. Right. Yep.
All right, I was making like all that shit. Like it don't really matter because I mean I will get beat up because it's wrong. And we know
But
that the
but but
culture
hold up.
came
But see,
from
it
they
does
didn't
matter
come
though. See
from.
that I disagree with you as far as wait. I disagree with you in terms
Yeah,
of
we
it
should.
mattering because okay, so when we challenge it, all right. So but here's the thing. So let me ask you this, because you and I agree on what we agreed on before, right? So now let me ask you this: if those dictionaries are wrong when they translate these terms as black, because we know that would be an anachronistic thing to do, right? Then aren't the people today who are trying to make the Egyptians black and argue for the blackness of ancient Egyptians and all that kind of stuff, are they too equally wrong? Yes or no?
I mean, it depends on your perspective. I mean, some of those people are not looking at it as like how you just explained it. Some of these people are feeling like racist against Arabs and like whiter skinned people just because they're posting or sharing information about Egypt. So that just makes people
No,
get
but my
into like
question,
the,
no, but my question is for those people
yeah, go ahead.
today who for those people today who are arguing that the ancient Egyptians are black or were black, are they equally wrong?
No, because they're saying it from their perspective. That's their perspective.
So now, now I want you. Okay, so I want you to see what you just did. So
Hmm.
when people are arguing that the ancient Egyptians are black and ask you are they wrong, instead of you saying yes that they're wrong, you say no that they're not wrong because they're arguing from their perspective. But when it comes to what you call Eurocentric scholars, you didn't say that they're arguing from their perspective. You just said that they're wrong.
No, I did say we're arguing from a Eurocentric perspective and that we should
No,
tell the
no
African perspective.
doubt. No,
Yeah, that's what
no,
I
but you
said.
also said that they're wrong. But you said that they're
Yeah, they
wrong.
are wrong. From my perspective, they're
Okay,
wrong.
but
I'm
the
sure like a European person would agree with it. I'm sure they do. About
okay,
perspective.
so again, all right. So now we're getting into the diversity of perspectives, and we're losing objectivity now, because now we definitely swimming in subjectivity based on people's perspectives. So your perspective is X Y Z, so and so's perspective is A B C, another person's perspective is L M N O P, and then it's all good according to those perspectives. And see, we lose objectivity when we do that. And then everybody just might as well go their own way and just make up whatever they want to make up. And that's what we got to cut out. That's that BS that we got to cut out. And so what
I
I'm
wouldn't say
saying,
make up it. I would say
now go ahead. I think there's a delay on the audio. Are you listening from the YouTube side, or are you listening here?
here. It's still a delay though.
Okay,
You can go ahead.
there's a slight delay. I'm not sure why that is, but okay, yeah, because it sounds, because I don't want to. I'm not. I have no intention of being rude of cutting you, but I think it's a delay. I think we're cutting each other off a bit, so I'm just trying to be mindful of that. But okay, so but here's the thing. Um, what you're allowing and getting into is the allowance of the difference of perspective, and that's always been going on. So we just might as well just let everybody go their own way and discuss their perspectives and just let everybody be. Why challenge anybody? You know what I'm saying?
I
Why
mean,
why challenge anybody?
to to a certain extent. I don't think that's a bad idea because I mean we've been getting a European perspective our whole life. I think it would be kind of nice to get the African perspective, not lie, but to
Well, why? Mhm.
go ahead.
Well,
Now go ahead.
why not? Okay, so when dealing with Egypt, why not get the Egyptian perspective?
Them as Africans, seeing that the culture is coming from like deep Africa. Like it didn't start up there. The culture is like cause coming from somewhere else.
Okay, I agree with that. That Egypt, their geographical location of the country, kingdom, and civilization has always been on the continent of Africa. So we can agree that you know at all times their culture and all that kind of stuff they're African. So we can agree with that.
Yeah, and what
That's
I'm saying is the
objectively
culture.
observed. Hmm.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the culture is coming from deep Africa though. Like it didn't start up there in North Africa, like near the Delta. We all know the pre-dynastic sites were in Lower Egypt. I mean Upper Egypt, but even before that, like the culture was like even deeper south than that. So I see
Well,
them African.
mhm.
Now go
Yeah, I don't
ahead.
have a disagreement with that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. That's not based on any person's perspective. That's based on just the evidence. So
Yeah, but
if we follow the evidence, then we can't go wrong, right?
yeah, facts. And what that's what I'm saying. But the European perspective don't tell it like that.
Actually, it does.
They'll like them.
The well, no. Check this out. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with E.A. Wallace Budge?
Yeah, yeah. I know he. I know
Okay,
he was with
E.A.
it.
Wallace.
I know about him.
Yeah, so we have an early Egyptologist of the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he wholeheartedly advocated that the Egyptian people and culture came from inner Africa.
And what they did to him.
They whiteballed them.
Yeah, they ain't playing that. That's what
But
they
right,
don't want that. That's what I'm saying.
no, I know, but I'm saying so we can be specific. So we can't just say okay, let them and have this the quote unquote they them and stuff when there are we just got to deal with it as scholarship. Period. It doesn't matter if they're Euro, Afro, Indio, South
Oh
Pacifico,
yeah, I agree.
or whatever the case is. So we don't have to play games with the Continental War or the Color Wars. We just deal with the evidence. And so what I'm saying is that according to the evidence, is that the arguments that people are making, because see you're slicing through the point that I'm making by 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 going straight to reality where I agree with you earlier, and I say that we should lose the anachronistic everything. But the point I'm making is for those people who actually violate the anachronistic projection of modern social construct and trying to make the Egyptians black. They're trying to. Oh, I think he fell off. They're trying to make the Egyptians black. They're trying to make Egypt itself the black land. And all I'm saying is that people are relying on experts to do all of that stuff. But yet, the experts that they're relying on this whole time has already given them the land of the blacks. They already given them black people. But guess what? It's not Egypt. These same experts gave people Sudan on a platter. But these same people didn't want Sudan or didn't accept Sudan as the meal. And I see you 42. Let me pop you in there. Sorry for keeping you in there. They didn't accept Sudan as handed to them on a platter. They rather fight for Egypt. And that's the point I'm making. People are forcing a square inside of a circle. And how you know it's messed up is because now people are blending the two. They're taking Sudan, although they don't use the word Sudan, they're taking Nubia and Nubians and starting to blend them with Egyptians. Just listen to the arguments that are being made by over the past few years. People are saying that, and they'll use the single tomb of Ramses III to even do this. See, the ancient Egyptians saw themselves exactly like the Nubians. See, in Ramses the Table of Nations, Ramses the Third tomb. See that? They're the same, and you got people going around saying that stuff. And so that's the point. Because see, the point I'm making tonight, it connects to the larger point and what we've been saying this entire time. People got to stop with all the BS. Really, stop with the feel good. Stop, as people claim, culture vulturing. Vulturing and hovering over culture, trying to be something that you're not, or claim things that you're not, and then make up stuff to justify doing it. This is why we have all these fussing and fighting and wars. The Kemites versus this, or the Egyptomaniacs versus this and that, and stuff like that. You got all this stuff going on because nobody's actually just being straight up with the information and just following the evidence and losing the feel good stuff. Everybody and their mother knows that these scholars that people love to name drop, like Professor Walter Williams, Dr. Ben, Dr. Shekant Diop, who else? George G.M. James. Who else? I mean, you all are familiar with all these names. People will name drop these beloved scholars, and rightfully so. But what people don't do is put in the work, or to acknowledge any mistakes that are made, if made. People know that, for example, Walter Williams advocates that African Americans are direct descendants of ancient Egyptians. That some African Americans are. Did y'all know that? There's
What is
video
his
clips of him
argument
saying it.
for it?
Well,
Yeah,
there's video clips of him saying it.
I think we have like great uncle ancestry to the whole Nile Valley, not just Egypt. But it ain't direct.
Well, he
There's a
says
whole
I
direct.
lot
mean, we was in
between.
a
Yeah,
There's a whole lot between that.
but see, he says that now. Here's another one. Sheikh Anta Diop says that Kemetiu is black people, means black people.
the
That's why
Egyptians
I'd
are
say
our
hello to
cousins
the new
Dr.
born,
Ben
genetically.
everyone.
Dr. Ben said that ancient Egyptians said they come from the foothills of the mountain of the moon, uh, from a land where the god Happy dwells, and so on and so forth. Said that was in the Hunefer papyrus, but it's not. And it took a long time for people to admit that, okay, well, maybe Dr. Ben got the is wrong, but instead of saying he's wrong, they say, okay, maybe he saw it somewhere. It's just not in that papyrus. It's somewhere else, but nobody can ever find it. Nobody to this date has ever found any such statement being made. And so what I'm getting at is that there's been an era of time where people are forcing a square into a circle, and people are forcing the Egypt black thing, when the experts, because people are now pumping up experts, appealing to authority. These same experts have given people Sudan on a platter. Balad el Sudan, Ta-Nehisi meaning Negroes, blacks. Nehisiu meaning black people. All that's been given,
That's an
and go
Indian gift.
and right, and goes uncontested.
They're giving it as like the sacrificial true Negro.
They the reflects that gift.
Like leave Egypt alone.
Hey,
Regard
Wujaru.
yes. Hey, but peace
Hey,
everybody on the
what
panel.
you
I
was
didn't even
referring
acknowledge
to me when you was
we
talking
got
about the.
Kinesis, we got 42, we got Black Egyptian, we got Robert
Hey,
Rand.
you can't hear me?
So I can hear you.
Was you talking about me when you was talking about in Ramses 3? Trying to say that I said that.
Did he just fall off again?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who was that. Was Black Egyptian?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, he has to come back in.
Well, if I may speak, if you don't mind, I have some questions. First and foremost, thank you for letting me speak. I've subscribed to the channel around 2 weeks ago.
Okay, hey, good to have you here and welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, the subject about Egypt has been an interest of mine since this year. Uh, and I've been connecting to. I've been watching some of your videos now for 2 weeks, as I mentioned. You seems to have to go into this subject often about
Yep.
the issue of people really, well, not the issue, but really that the people are trying to see themselves into what we call Egypt now.
Hmm.
Uh, So, okay, I won't spend too much time speaking about that. What I'm trying to understand, as you've had this discussion with the Black Egyptian, I'm trying to understand. So basically, I understand that we're trying too much to say Egyptians are black. They were black. The ancient Egyptian, that's what they were. And we're trying to see that only, and that's it. So whenever we see something we think it's black, we say, "Hey, look, it's black. Look at this painting. Look at this statue, and so on." That I understand. Uh, Perhaps they had familiar phenotypes that we can see, perhaps in Sudan today, or in America, or whatever. I get that, or in African Americans in that sense, or other parts of Africa. I get it, but that's not how they see themselves, right? They make distinctions between people in the south or the north and so on. I understand that, but your point basically is that the concept, the modern concept of blackness as we see it today, wasn't a thing back then in that region of the world. Let's say more than 2,000 years ago or so on. What I'm trying to understand is that now you're saying that instead we should look at Sudan if we want to point our if we want to have a certain affinity to a group of people who lived in the Nile Valley, and that we could see as black. But doesn't it apply to them as well that they wouldn't see themselves as black people back then in that region of the world? Because in some ways, it doesn't matter, right? Because the main affinity is your I'm not going to say tribe. It's not tribe necessarily, but your people, correct? So
Yeah.
why are you
Hmm.
directing the shift to Sudan? Because I don't think the concept of blackness, the modern one that we have in America. By the way, I'm not American. I don't live there, but the modern concept of blackness in America doesn't apply as well to Sudan.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that, and that'll give me a chance to give the bigger point and to include my stance on all of this. So my stance on all of this is that all of it is detrimental and shouldn't be done. Whether people try to do it with Egypt or Sudan. But my point tonight, so that's my stance. And my reasoning behind that is because that no matter how you slice and dice it, that's an anachronistic move to make, because the modern social constructs that we have today did not exist, and the people didn't organize themselves based on it in ancient times at all. Okay, so that's my stance. But my point tonight is that if people are going to fight that fight and going to identify with a group of people in East Africa and make the arguments that are being made and have been made for over 50 years now, from 1970s all the way up till today. The point I'm making is that it's very strange that people ignored what was given to them, because every argument that's being made about Egypt, and you have to argue that, is already given when it comes to Sudan. So, for example, people are saying that the very word Egypt means the land of black people, and that the name of the country or kingdom of Egypt was inspired because the people saw themselves as black Africans. Now, if that argument is going to be made, then the experts, the Egyptologists who people are relying on, they said the same thing, but not of Egypt. They said it for Sudan. They said Ta-Nehisi is the land of black people. They said the word Nehisiu means black people. That's the point I'm making. It's like these experts that they rely on is already giving them the all of the arguments, but it just happens to not be Egypt when they do it. It's Sudan.
Yeah, but I guess one of the reasons why is because Egypt shines as a civilization that was really one of the premier civilization back in the day. So Sudan is interesting, yes, but I think one of the issues that we could say we have with Sudan is that as far as archaeology or research done in the cultures of that region, they are far less than Egypt.
Okay, so wait, pause right there.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you, but see, now you're getting into, now you are discussing the reasons why, but my point was to point out the actual fact of what's happening. But we can get into why, and I agree with that, because why Egypt is the focus and not Sudan is because Egypt is and has always had the spotlight over Sudan.
Yes.
And Egypt has way more attested records and primary artifacts, material culture, and writing and things left behind outside of that Sudan doesn't have the equal amount to. And down there, in terms of the ancient languages and things, Sesh, Medew, Netcher, and all of that was deciphered and given credit to Champollion in the early 1800s, whereas Meroitic and stuff is still being worked out and worked on to this very day. So Egypt has a huge head start and has had all the limelight way over Sudan. So that's the reason why. So I agree with you there. But the point, so explaining why doesn't negate the fact that it's happening. And so I'm pointing out the fact that it's happening to suggest on top of it that it shouldn't happen at all, because all of it at the end of the day is a waste of time and it's really silly, because that's not how the people saw themselves. That's not how they organized themselves. That's not how they engaged themselves. But yet we anachronistically, we want to identify and grab Egypt over everything dealing with Sudan for the reasons that you said and that I agree with.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is crazy. But what I'm saying, even the arguments to this very day though. And just 1 second. So Black Egypt, earlier I think you thought that you were kicked out and whatnot. So I just want to definitely let you know that you weren't kicked out, and so you were dropping in and out. So it's definitely something with your connection or connection to
I
restream.
just been sitting here the whole time, but I got a question though. When you was talking about that Ramses 3, and you said people are going around trying to say that, trying to mix it up, like, was you trying to refer to what I did on Garfield show?
No, I'm not even familiar with you on Garfield show. So I
Okay,
definitely wasn't
cause
talking about you. Cause remember, so let me tell you, I've been dealing with this for over 10 years. So I've dealt with a lot of people dealing with the Book of Gates, the the one in Seti the first, the one in Ramses the second, Ramses the sixth, Merneptah, these different tombs and everything. I've done shows on it. I've dealt with people who bring that up and stuff all the time. So I wasn't talking about you when I just said that. In fact, I didn't even know you were on Garfield's show showing it or anything like that.
Look like that?
I'm not familiar with that. Say it again.
Did he
See you breaking up. So I don't want you to accuse me of kicking you out because you break it up. I don't know what's up with your connection.
just, are you saying that Egyptians look like that?
Wow, you breaking up. Are you asking me? Did the Egyptians look like that? You. I'm trying to listen to what you're saying.
Yeah, Black Egypt, we can't hear you, or when you're speaking, your voice breaks.
Yeah, you
Who's
breaking
that
up. I'm not sure
speaking
if you're
with
on
the
the.
K?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Oh,
I
that's
was just curious
Kinesis.
where you're from. Oh, Kinesis.
Me, I'm from Canada,
Oh, okay.
but my ethnicity, I'm Asian. But regardless, uh, another thing. So I guess that people want to identify with the Egyptian, not necessarily because they're African, because, for example, in North Africa, there are civilizations here as well. Like you have
Hmm.
Carthage that played a role against fighting against the Roman, but that's not what it's about. I guess what it's about with Egypt is that we have a lot of art which shows them first and foremost it's mostly the art because I guess most people who get interested into the subject, the first thing that they'll see either on TikTok or Twitter or whatever, they'll see stelas, paintings, or whatever, of people looking like black people that we'll see today and in Africa or in the Americas and so on. So that's the first thing that grabs you. So after that, the
Yeah.
more surface level arguments or comments that you'll hear is that Egyptians were black, uh,
Hmm.
history is
Exactly.
stolen, not stolen, but uh, the Eurocentrists are not talking about this, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
that's the
So
grab, and I guess it's the reason why most of us actually got into the field in the first place, right?
exactly. And so your everything you said are all of the ingredients that create this euphoric mania that we see today when it comes to Egypt. And so a lot of people are attracted to Egypt, and a lot of it is justified. Is There's nothing wrong with it because Egypt definitely was all that and a bag of chips. Like we don't have to exaggerate anything about Egypt. We don't have to lie on Egypt for Egypt to be as great as it was. Egypt stands on its own. And what I advocate and what frustrates me is is to see the greatness of Egypt as it is on its own, and then to sit and watch people feel the need to exaggerate and romanticize and to make up things about it. When if we leave it to speak on its own and let the ancient Egyptians have their way, it's already great as it is.
Yeah,
There's so many great things about Egypt told from Egypt itself. If people just learn to read, and just survey all of the data and stuff we have of Egypt, it will stand on its own. So when I see people, you know, make something out of it above and beyond what the Egyptians say and things like that, that's when we get set back. And so that's one of the points that I'm making is that people are willing to ignore the experts when the experts are pointing everybody to Sudan when it comes to blackness. They ignore all of that stuff and then they go straight line to Egypt because Egypt was so great. People want to force a square in a circle space with Egypt and try to take all the accolades that's been given to Sudan and superimpose it onto Egypt. Say Egypt is the black land. Egyptians uh, name themselves and name their country as the inspiration of their skin color, this, that, and the third, when none of that is true. But yet the experts say the same thing, but for Sudan.
Yeah,
Nahisi means black. Ta Nahisi is the land of blacks. Belad el Sudan or As Sudan by the medieval Arabs are is has a meaning of the land of blacks. You go there today, you see the contrast between people in Egypt and then people in Sudan, like as if it's night and day, and so on
yes,
and so
I
on
see
and so
that.
on.
Yeah, but I won't get into that too much. But no, I won't get. There was an argument I wanted to put there. I don't think it matters. Uh, One thing though, that's I understand that people will make almost any comment and try to repeat it about ancient Egypt. It's not only about ancient Egypt. I was watching yesterday some people talking about ancient history in Mesopotamia or Asia or Mesoamerica, where apparently I won't say alien technologies, but there's always a alternate history that historians can prove that it's not true, but a lot of people will believe and repeat stuff that is based on not necessarily reality, but on whatever they feel like, whatever fits their narrative or their point of view. Uh, I get that, but um, yeah, one thing I don't have your perspective about this, but what is your because you mentioned that you've done this for 10 years now, discussing about people about this because people put too much focus about Egypt on the phenotype of stuff, on the phenotype of the people or which race they are, in quotes, versus the actual language, the actual stuff that they've achieved in the civilization, right? Uh, what my last question, I guess, because I'll let other people speak after me. Uh, what would if you still want to continue to study Egypt and Sudan, because ultimately I feel like they're related civilizations. Uh, they've always been related since the beginning, but Sudan is less known at this point and has less interest. But if I want to continue to study about Egypt and look into things to get more familiar, not about the race thing, but about their culture, their language, the way they their vision of the world, right? What would you recommend to go to at this point? What will be the direction to go to deepen the knowledge about this subject? And that's my last
Okay, okay, yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of loaded, but yeah. So, what I recommend and what I've always recommend is that first, if you have the understanding that language is the DNA of culture, regardless of the culture that are trying to focus on. Once you gain an understanding that language is metaphorically, the DNA of culture, because language records the psyche and the psychology and the worldview of the people of the particular culture. Once you understand that, then you'll know that in order to intimately engage the culture or any culture, you have to do so by way of its language. So one of my first things that I tell everyone that want to seriously study Egypt, you have to at least learn the basics of the language. And so that's the starting point. That's the pathway I tell people to go. Learn at least the basics. I'm not saying people have to get a degree or all that kind of stuff with the language, but at least learn the basics, because ancient Egypt, the benefit that we have of ancient Egypt and not so many other cultures of antiquity is Egypt is well attested. It has material culture, a plethora of material culture, and it's well attested in terms of what the people thought, recorded, and on top of that, it's done by a group of people that had their own sovereignty. They weren't, for the most part, they were not under the yoke of colonization or racism, white supremacy, or whatever the things that we talk about today. They were able to record history as they see fit. on their own accord and by their own volition, and to have their own agency. And so we have the benefit of having those items available to us today in the form of writing. So it would be crazy not to get the basics of the language and the writing system and things so that people can engage the culture that way. That way we don't have to rely on misinformation and people making things up, because we can allow the Egyptians to speak for themselves. Let them speak for themselves. And so that would be my first uh, thing. And that's how I established the curriculum
All right.
for over the 10 years. That's step one on the curriculum that I have already created. And then from there, and then once we understand that, and then you can engage the culture. You start to read text. Now you have to get to understand the text itself. So you got to kind of take a philological route of knowing the different genres of text that exist, and then their purposes and stuff, and then actually survey them, actually analyze them, and become familiar with them. So what they're calling underworld texts, what they're calling religious texts, what they're calling instructional texts, the sabayit, what they're calling poems, what they're calling whatever else. You got to start getting familiar with that, and to actually read through them and start to analyze them and things like that. Then you start to get more and more familiar with the culture. So it's a build up to where you become more and more familiar with the culture and the worldview of the people. And so when I said I've been doing this for 10 years, I've been teaching the language for over 10 years. I've been dealing with Egypt, more than longer than that. And so from my experience and me executing what I advocate, I see things a little bit differently than some of the arguments that I'm hearing. And so a lot of the points I'm making are based on these experiences. So
Because,
so the point tonight.
yeah,
So
because
that's the point tonight.
yeah. So I guess when you're reading the text, you don't see the Egyptian saying that keep insisting on their blackness or stuff like that. It doesn't. It's not an important point for them. They assume who they are, and about their. It's mostly about because they're people of the country. That's what they identify with, from what I understand, and that's what they focus on. The idea of blackness and things like that, or automatic association with any type of people from the south of the country. It doesn't matter, I guess.
Well, according to the Egyptians themselves, they focus more on Egyptianness and not blackness at all. Like
Yeah,
like 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 how we think. It was about Egyptianness versus otherness. And
it's like I'm sorry. It's like pretty much any other African people. Being black is whatever there is. It's not. It's people. It's human. Being a human being. It doesn't matter your skin color or stuff like that. I guess.
right. So yeah, it still goes on today exactly, because here's the thing. There
And
are
that's
there
why
are
the whole goddamn continent is colonized because we think like that. But go ahead.
um so even to this very day, right? You have neighboring communities of people on the continent that to an outsider they look alike. They would classify them modernly as black people, black Africans, and the whole nine that people say today. But to those individual two groups of people, communities, they see themselves as different from one another, as distinct from one another. They know that they're fellow comrades, or fellow humans, and this, that, and the third, but they see themselves as distinct. So if you go into Kenya, you go anywhere, but I'm gonna give you an example of Kenya. You got the Luo people, you got the
Kikuyu.
Kikuyu people,
Yeah, yeah.
you got the Maasai people. They're all Kenyans, and they have this national spirit about them, of togetherness. But when you drop below that in a more detailed level, a Luo person is not a Kikuyu, and they will get offended if you call them Kikuyu when they're not. And likewise in Nigeria, among the Yoruba and the Igbo,
Yeah.
the same
Also,
thing.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, this exactly the same thing. So it's not about the blackness. when it comes to the actual reality on the ground and how people engage one another, it's not about the blackness. That is a modern thing. That is a result of what we do here as African Americans in America, because we don't have the other sense. We only unify on the basis of what we feel is similar, the similar experience through the transatlantic slave trade and things like that. So we have this flat blackness concept that we hold up high. But you go everywhere else, that's just a side piece. That's just a little afterthought. So now let me go back to ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, Egyptian times, if you were loyal to the king, if you acknowledged and dealt with the deities, and you spoke the Egyptian language,
We're
and
Egyptian.
then there's a couple other things, you were pretty much Egyptian.
Yeah.
They considered you one of them.
Like the phenotype could tell on which, maybe even not, but you could perhaps guess on which region of the country they came from, but you know it was the Egyptian, whether they were dark skinned, light skinned, or someone looking like, I'll say, people from the very north. It wouldn't matter if they were Egyptian. They had the same religion and all the attributes you mentioned. That would be it. That's it.
Exactly. And so if you let the Egyptians speak, and then we allow that to happen, we would start to lose all this other stuff that people do today. And that was one of the points that I'm making tonight, by showing that the land of blacks, whether it's Egypt or Sudan, asking that question, which one is the land of blacks? And the answer is undoubtedly Sudan. And this
From
is
a historical point of view, it's been seen as Sudan.
yes, from the historical point of view, from the scholarly point of view,
Yeah.
from Egyptologists and the whole nine, it's been very consistent that Sudan is the land of blacks, not Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so that's the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
point. That's the like nobody can argue against that.
yeah.
Sudan, from today going all the way back to Egyptian times, Sudan has always been seen as the land of blacks and the land of black people. Nobody can argue against that,
Yeah,
and that's
I,
and that's
Um,
the bottom line.
wouldn't you also say like Egypt was seen that way by like Greeks in medieval period? Because you've probably seen that image of Cleopatra, and she was a
Mhm.
Ptolemy, but like the medieval Cleopatra was drawn up dark skin. So I would think like that probably stretched to Egypt for a period.
Well, to be specific, I would answer that as a no, only because according to the Greeks and the Greek records that come out of this, is they had a demarcation. They separated Egyptos from Ethiops or Ethiops, and so they had a demarcated line there, and so they saw everything below Egypt as black. Everything below Egypt was called Ethiops. And remember, according to their historical records with Homer and the Iliad and all that kind of stuff, the Ethiopian and the different gods, they thought that was the edge of the known world, where the sun rises and sets, and because the sun is close, that's where the sun lives. They felt that the people who lived on the edge had darker surface, which is what the word ops mean. People say it means burnt face, but it means burnt surface. So the surface of their skin was darker due to that. And so even among the Greeks, they separated Egyptos from Ethiops. So
uh,
that's a little different.
yeah.
Is it?
So I have one last. I'm not sure if you finish.
Oh yeah, I'll wait. You can go ahead.
All right. Before I go, I have one last point I would like you to review. So basically, you're familiar with Sheikh Anta Diop, right? And so basically, from what I understand, what he did uh, back then with his books and the conference in Cairo, something like that. It's basically, from what I understand, because in Egyptology, uh, they had what I could say a racial focus on saying that the people in the south of Egypt or in this in Sudan and below had absolutely nothing to do with ancient Egypt, right? And from what
Yeah.
I understand, Sheikh Anta Diop, what he did was to basically fight against that, to say that they're discrediting Black Africans, that they're removing them from history, and so on and so forth. So he started that. I don't think he started that. I think other people mentioned that in the past, but it was really the head figure on pushing the idea of uh, not stopping Egyptology, but to uh, 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 you know uh, review or discuss about that issue about discrediting Black Africans or whatever.
Yeah, let me say this while
Yeah,
you're on that point. Um, Diop in the late '60s and early '70s, Diop along with Theophilo Benga and others, but Diop is definitely the figurehead on this, and rightfully so. As a brilliant scientist he was, um, he championed the pushback. So there was blatant racism and blatant scientific racism that was used as well, and just racism in general when it came to early Egyptology. Because remember, the birth of Egyptology was has its genesis during the time of slavery.
yeah,
Okay, slavery and the world views of black people was baked in the minds of the whole European world and the whole thing that was on and popping. Okay, and
yeah,
so there's no way that Egypt could be given over in any form or fashion to these same people that they were enslaving. So they had to go out of their way. By they, I'm talking about these the European populations and their scholars. They had to go out their way to make sure that Egypt was never identified with quote unquote Black Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and things like that, from which they were kidnapping and involved with the transatlantic slave trade and things like that. So Diop later on, obviously in the '60s and '70s, was pushing back on the scholarship. Now that time has gone by and materials were being made available worldwide, so he championed the pushback. Now, in him doing so, Diop being a genius as he was, he used he used he used the European scholars' logic against them. So in one instance, I give you for instance, with the very word Kemet, okay, he used their own logic. He said to them, he said, listen, if you all are saying Kemet means black land, or the name Kemet has to do with the blackness or the fertility of the soil through by way of its blackness, and he showed the glyphs that they use, which is the I6 glyph, the owl, and the raised bread loaf, and then you have the 049 um, village or city determinative, right? That is the most used set of glyphs to spell out the place name Kemet. And Diop is saying, listen, you guys say that this word means black land, black land, black land, black land, because of the determinative of it being a country, right? So he said, okay, fine, I'm gonna give y'all that. But since y'all do that, then what about this same word, but with the people determinative? So I got the same set of glyphs in front of it,
oh, I
but
see. Yeah,
yet,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yes, it's determined by people. So now, if this one means black land, then this other one must mean black people. You see, so Diop is the one that's kicked that off and started that line of thinking. But he was doing it only using the European logic against them. That wasn't something that was fresh from scratch. Diop wasn't making that argument from scratch. He was using there. It's like, what do you call it? Reversing. You
Refuting or
Yeah, he was using the logic against them to make the argument that they could not get out of, because if they deny him on his point, they would have to deny their own point. You see what I'm saying? And they
Yeah.
and they don't want to do that. And that's what Diop knew, and Diop advocated that. And so now after Diop, you got all these people leading up to today don't know the real arguments and haven't done the work. They're expounding on the backwards logic part of it. And that's been the problem for the past 50 years. And
Okay.
Diop passed away with a suggestion and charge to people. He said that he tells everybody that it bothers him, and of course this is why he's alive. He's saying this. He said it bothers me when people take me on my word and not develop the proofs to verify what I say.
Yeah, I see.
And
Yeah.
he said,
Yeah.
and he's
Go ahead,
advocating
go ahead.
people to formulate teams, scientifically thinking teams, put teams together, and to verify the work. Don't take me for my word. Now I'm paraphrasing, but I could pull up his exact quotes, but that's the point. And so I'm here tonight. I'm live right here tonight, in the spirit of Diop, saying that listen, all of that black stuff, all of it is a waste. Because the Egyptians and ancient people, period, not even just the Egyptians, nobody organized themselves based off of no haplogroups, no genotypes, or none of those kind of things.
Yeah.
So every time that enters a conversation, it's done. It destroys the conversation. It's all about, at the very least, the ethnic level that we now call ethnic level, the ethnic level of organization, where people have a common language. If you don't speak a common language, you're not the same people. Like if you don't speak my language, you're not of me. That's how they saw it. If you're not loyal to our structured organization of our people through our kingship or whatever, however we got it structured, if you're not loyal to that and you're not a member of that, then you're not my people.
So this is why you recommend to read and trying to understand how they think.
Exactly. But let me just take a moment. I got this statement on the screen for a reason. This is from Black Egyptian, and he says, so anybody can be Egyptian, but you just finished saying there was distinctions made between other people and them. So I want to take that first part and address that, because that's really silly.
But
Um,
sorry. Thank you
go ahead.
for speaking with me. Thank you, guys. I have to go. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. All right. Hey, appreciate you coming. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you
Yep.
very much. Bye
All
bye.
right. And you're welcome anytime. All right. Hold up. Peace. So, all right, let me address this point here. So, um, so he says, so anybody can be Egyptian, but you just finished saying there were distinctions made between other people. So Black Egyptian, you're saying that as if that's a contradictory statement when it's absolutely not. So, for instance, to this very day, I don't know where you live, but I live in the United States of America. Okay, so people can come to the United States of America and become American. Now we know American in that sense is shortened form of meaning a United States citizen, not of the Americas, but the United States of America allows people to become American. Prior to them becoming American, they're not American. So in ancient Egypt, there's distinctions made with their foreign neighbors. Everybody that was not considered one of them was not them. But the people who were not them could become one of them through processes. For instance, now let me give you a for instance. In the tale of Senuhat, there's a story that demonstrates this or illustrates this point. Senuhe or Senuhat is a person who was born and raised in Egypt. He was an Egyptian by every sense of the word. He leaves Egypt. He learns the ways of a foreign culture, of foreign people. He raises in the hierarchy of class and status among the foreigners in foreign territory in their language and the whole nine, wealth, financial, the whole thing, to the point where he stopped performing his Egyptianness and the things that identify him as Egyptian. But before he died, he wanted to be buried at home, home being ancient Egypt or Kemet. Now, in order for him to be granted permission to be buried at home, he had to be re Egyptianized. So when he left and stayed and came back, he was no longer seen as an Egyptian. But once he was re Egyptianized, then he became Egyptian again and was granted his request and wish to be buried at home in Egypt. This is an Egyptian story that illustrates this point. All right. So the statement that I made is there's no contradiction whatsoever. The Egyptians definitely distinguished themselves from their neighbors. All right, and I want everybody to really understand that. So, for the sake of what I'm saying, let me put a couple of things on the screen again. Once
Um,
again, go ahead.
couldn't like I don't want to interrupt, but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
it seems like you could still say the same for Egypt based on the Greeks because when they went deeper into Africa, like I think when they went to Somalia, they called the people microbians or something like that. And then they also had the Libyans, and then when they go into other places and into Europe, they would start to give things a name and a border and a separation.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who would then study them and see how they associated Egyptians with Ethiopians, I could see how they would develop a thing. Oh, that's where black people are at, or dark skinned people. If you want to go see people that look like this Versailles statue, that's where you go. So that's where I'm thinking like it could have just been the initial getting to know Egypt, like I don't know, 1000, 1200 BC, when Greeks were really starting to slowly trickle in. Um, Maybe a little after that, but I could see where that would just be because I remember reading the histories. It was a long time ago. I don't remember that book that well, but there were a couple times where Herodotus just associated Egypt with Ethiopia. Like if there was a war, they would just go get some Ethiopians. They did say the same thing about Persia, but it was like they were the exceptions. And like
Mm-hmm.
most of them weren't Ethiopians.
Mm-hmm.
And you see what I mean? How we kind of get the same thing with Egypt, but I agree we don't get it through. Um, I don't see how we get it through the word Kemet, and just in general, like there's I think I'm pretty much in full agreement that there is no black race until it's created relatively recently. Like there, all the watermelon. I think the watermelon was tamed in the Sudan, but they didn't make any picking any images or anything like that. Like there's no real black race. I just don't put any weight on that. Like I think, oh, you're absolutely correct. I just think it's all about what it is today. Like that's the only area where I see it being relevant is like just in modern depictions because like even if you go by like YouTube, there are so many videos. Well, they'll take a statue and just whitewash it, and it's to the point where you really have to look past that. And if you were to do an honest representation of Egyptians, you probably would have people, and you have this in a lot of places in Africa, but you have people who might look like Eurasians dipped in chocolate, and they'll be right next to someone who looks like Sojourner Truth or Otis Redding or whoever in the face. But then when you get to like the shape of the head, there seems to be more uniformity. But
Mm-hmm.
that's all I'm saying is I agree. I just don't put much weight on it. Like, yeah, black race is new, but it's here today. It is what it is. and there's a maniacal push to make Egyptians as white as possible. And I guess part of me is just my personality. Like I remember when I was a kid, I almost got into a fight over something like that. Like somebody colored my coloring book wrong, and I was like, "Oh, I
So you
And
you
then
got some trauma.
yeah, but then part of it is just like I know that this whitewashing is done in a way that will be used against us any way possible, whether it's politics or anything.
Well, okay, so because the black statements have been made, let me just play this clip because I gotta show people that people respect and idolize and things like that. So this is a clip of Dr. John, the late John Henry Clark, talking about the modern social construct of race and his stance on it. So hopefully it's not too long, and hopefully I had the right clip. So I'm gonna play this and you all listen to him and whatnot, because a lot of people want to invoke authorities and experts. So I don't think people will argue against Dr. Clark. But let me play this.
You saying in essence that there's no such thing as a race.
Oh, I maintain that race is the phoniest issue ever invented by the mind of man. The European invented and developed the concept of race. There's really no such thing as a race because nature created no races. The whole race is a man-made thing,
Well, how did people get to be French and English?
Well, different climatic conditions and migrations and amalgams of different people and migrations of people into your country, migrations of people out. All right. Now this is an ethnic grouping as against what we call race. If you go back and you look at an old dictionary, you won't even find a definition for a race. Race grew out of the pseudo-scientific development of Europe. And this is what Rogers was addressing himself to and saying that according to your rule, which is ridiculous, a lot of you belong to us.
Well, in another context, if race is arbitrary, then could we say that being called black was a political term?
It's a political term and a term which indicates our self-awareness at this juncture in history, and I think we really need it. We need to really bathe in blackness for a while, but I wish we'd get the bath over with and go on to something a little more important, because black in itself is not an ethnic term. Black tells you how you look, but it don't tell you who you are. We are essentially an African people. Wherever we live on this earth, we're essentially an African people. And we relate to the millions of African people throughout the world, including the uncounted millions of Africans in Asia. The word Afro-American or African-American would probably be more appropriate and more honest and more in keeping with what we actually are. Because all of us are not positively, physically, real jet black. And so the argument now sometimes is between the supernationalists and the mild nationalists and blacker than thou, when blackness is a state of mind, a state of attitude, a state of approach to things that can exist in almost any of us, including from the blonde black person to the jet black. And the jet black can be traitors, and they can be patriarchs. They can be a whole lot of... See, we've been everything in history from saint to buffoons. We're a complete people, and we need to start looking at ourselves as a complete people. And I think that once we convinced ourselves that we're black and beautiful, we'll stop saying it and just go ahead and be black and beautiful and release a whole lot of energy for more important things.
All right.
Man, did y'all hear him? Did y'all hear the late and great Dr. John Henry Clark? Everything he said in that clip is what, because he's my senior, of course. So I have echoed the things that he said in that clip. I say it all the time, that this focus that we have, this focus we have on blackity black black blacker than black black blacker black 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 is setting us back. It's setting us back 400 years, 200 years, 50 years. This constant focus on black, the flat black and everything. It is detrimental at this point. And Dr. John Henry Clark said it, and I don't even know, and you all can keep me honest and let me know, because I don't know. But I don't know when that interview was done. And I can probably trace it out. But if anybody knows off the top of their head, please post it in the chat. But whatever point in time that Dr. Clark did that interview, it's been said since then, obviously, because he's saying it. And I'm sure that's not the first time he said it, because the way he even said it was as if something that he advocated for quite some time. And so y'all heard him. And I'm a paraphrase. He said that black, one, is not an ethnic. It doesn't tell you who you are. And people say, I am black. That's a stark contradiction to what Dr. Clark just said. When you say I am black, that's not who you are, according to Dr. Clark. Being black don't tell us who you are. And so this whole black thing is really a setback. It really is a setback. And so what I'm saying is that every time we try to study people of antiquity, these ancient cultures that we talk about, from west to East Africa, from Kemet all the way to Songhai and everything else in between and whatnot, we want to anachronistically identify our modern constructs and project them backwards. So when it comes to Egypt, when it comes to Kush, when it comes to Sudan or whatever the case is, we want to involve the conversation of our modern concepts of blackness into that conversation. So the Egyptians got to be black in the way that we mean it today. The Sudanese need to be black in the way that we mean it today. King James got to be black. Jesus got to be black. Buddha got to be black. The Olmecs got to be black. Do y'all see the theme? Y'all see what's going on? Everybody got to be black. Santa Claus got to be black. Peter Pan's got to be black. Humpty Dumpty is a black egg. Rudolph is black, even with his red nose. Everybody's going to end up being black if it's left up to us. Chinese people, I'm sure y'all seen the memes. The original Japanese people, the original Chinese people were black. Indians, black. Dravidian Indians. But go ahead.
We got a black Jesus in the Vatican, but we still haven't gotten reparations. So even when like the capital of Christianity has a black Jesus in its headquarters, they still racist. So what difference would the Olmecs make? Hey,
right.
When you get a moment,
right.
there's something I want to show you before I head out, though.
Okay. If you have to share your screen, go ahead.
Yeah, quick.
You can share your screen, but I wanna just drive this point home because a lot of times people may miss the point because they want to make their own point, and this is the thing too. And I know people may not be used to, maybe new to me or even new to this channel, whatever the case is. I don't mind hearing and walking with people on their points. But what we got to stop doing is when a point is being made, we can't hijack a point and then make a different point, because it messes up the points that's being made. Okay, like we got to let the points reach the point, and then we could, kind of dance around and switch up or whatever the case is. And I see this happen a lot. Not with me, but I see that happen with other people. They will disrupt the point because there's a logic flow up to a point. That's why we call it a point, because a point is a period, and period usually ends the sentence. So once the point is made, it usually ends the build up, right? So the point I'm making tonight is that, matter of fact, as I say this, let me just put this back on the screen real quick because it makes sense of why I even have this image here, right? With this image on the screen, the point that I'm making with this image and what I said earlier is that the land of the blacks, is it Egypt or is it Sudan? And the point I'm making is that the consistent answer has always been right in front of us, which is Sudan. From its modern name of the word Sudan, coming from Balad es Sudan, which they translate, the experts translate as the land of blacks, going backwards to the early Egyptologists such as Budge, such as Griffiths, such as Ehrman, and all these other people. What's his name? I don't know what, Breasted, and so on and so forth. They translate the term Nehes, Nehesiu, and Ta Nehesi as black land, and blacks. That's what they did. They're the experts for their day and time. Then you go to medieval Arabs with the term Balad es Sudan, as I said, which they named the whole from East Africa all the way to West Africa, along the Sahel and everything. It's just that modern times, all those terms cut off, but it was left for the country today, Sudan, North and South Sudan today. And then you go back all the way back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians differentiated their location and themselves from the people south of them. They called the area south of them Ta Nehisi. They called the people collectively as the Nehisiu. And among the Nehisiu, or among the larger collective, you have different communities. The Wawetiu, the Majayu, the Imamu, the Sechu, and so on and so on. So you have different groups. And you have Kash down there, or Kush, as we say today. All of these places were beyond the southern borders of Egypt, but in this larger area of Ta Nehisi. And my point is that the experts, people want to appeal to authority all the time, but these experts said that land was the black land. They said those people called Nehisi are Negroes, blacks. We know the word Negro means black. We know the word Negroes is blacks plural. So if we're going to be looking for a land of black people, why didn't we look at Sudan? Now, to the credit of people who pushing that, they're leveraging the curveball, because now people are saying the Nubians are the Egyptians. But the fact is that the original Nubians in the land, in the areas of Nubet, or Kom Ombo and Ombos, which was the two prominent cities that we would Romanize or Anglicize into the term Nubian. We would take the word Nubet and change it to Nubian. Those are the two places of Nubia. But that's within Egypt's borders. That's not talking about what people now call Nubians, which are the Nehisiu. See, the Nehisiu are not the people who live in Kom Ombo. The Nehisiu are not the people who live in Ombos. The Nehisiu are not the people who lived in the archaeological site of Nakada 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. All of that is in Egypt. The Nehisiu were on the outside of Egypt to its south. But they call them Nubians now. So that's the trick. So Nehisi was translated as Negroes, and then the word Negroes was swapped for Nubians. So when people say the Nubians are the Egyptians, now the confusion starts. Because you think it's talking about the Nubians that were true Nubians in Egypt versus the Nehisiu that was on the outside of Egypt, its southern neighbors. And that's the trick. All because people got to make Egypt black. They got to anachronistically project the modern social construct of race backwards in history as a feel-good mechanism to offset the trauma and everything that we've inherited and lived through the transatlantic slave trade. We have to attach ourselves to greatness. and rightfully so. But in doing so, we're going extreme. We got blackologists, we got romanticizers, we got people romanticizing Egypt, we got blackologists making everybody black. And then on the flip side of that, you got people who are denying the actual facts about Egypt. Talking about Egypt as a Mediterranean culture as if to say other than Egypt borders the Mediterranean Sea. That's the only agreement you'll get out of that. If that's the reason Egypt is being called a Mediterranean culture, then fine, because it borders the Mediterranean Sea. That's the extent of that claim. But if people are making the claim to try to separate Egypt out of Africa, say no, it's a Mediterranean culture just like Rome, Italy, and Spain, and Crete, and all the other kind of stuff, nah. That's the other side of the goofy. No,
You should
Egypt
include Atlantis. If they're gonna say that.
and Lemuria and Shambhala and Agartha, the cities inside the earth, they might as well include all that stuff. And on top of that, now you have people that are saying Egypt is not in Africa, it's in Northeast Africa. So now people are emphasizing Northeast Africa as opposed to Africa for the same reason. Or they're saying Egypt is not sub-Saharan African, it's super-Saharan. And all of that silliness comes into play. So as Dr. Clark said, man, all of that is really not important at this point. It shouldn't be important at this point. And that's my statement. And that's my stance. All of this stuff is really for the birds. It's setting us back 400 years. If people want to know my stance on it, I wear my stance on my sleeve, on my chest. I think all of it is silly. The Egyptians were not black, nor were they white, or any other modern social construct. Period, point blank. And can't nobody prove me wrong. Unless you're saying the Egyptians are time travelers and they came through a time travel and adopted the modern social construct, the race that we have that's bore itself out of our modern society and then went backwards in time to execute that concept, you're nuts. The Egyptians did not organize themselves. Nobody, and then the DNA argument, everybody want to bring up haplogroups and DNA and this, that, and the third. They didn't organize themselves. They were not taking blood tests and swabbing each other's cheek to find out who was Egyptian or not in those days and time. They didn't organize themselves. They didn't have a border set up and say, okay, before you can cross this border and be one of us, let me swap your cheek. Let me take your blood sample. Let me look at it under a microscope. Let me map your genome first. Let me find out what haplogroup you are first. None of that was done. So people are crazy to introduce the whole DNA element into these conversations. It's all about the elements of identity used by them, which was language. Is one of the highest elements of identity. Do you speak my language? Because you can look like me, but not speak my language, therefore you're not of me. That's how people on the continent are to this day. They'll tell you that. I have students in my classes that are from South Africa. One person in particular, he explained his story to us. He said that he is from South Africa. His mother and father are from two different clans, two different groups of people. Both groups are ultimately, South African groups, but they're from two different groups. He grew up with his mother. So when he goes to his father's clan, among his father's people, they don't see him as one of them. They never did until he became of a certain age. He had to get initiated into the ways of those people before they accepted him as one of them, before they actually acknowledged him as one of them, even though he was blood son of a person that was one of them. And that's how it is. You could talk to any African, I ain't gonna say any, but talk to Africans on the continent among different people. Emiket was on here explaining among her people, the Luo people, and the Kikuyu, and the Luha people, how they look very similar, especially to us. Like if we were to go to Kenya right now and they were not to wear their uniqueness of attire, like you know how they wear those collars with elaborate beads and stuff like that. If they were to take that off, that makes them distinct, we would see them all like, oh man, y'all are all the same, and they would get offended because they're not. I dare you to call a Luo person a Kikuyu person and vice versa. Same with the Yoruba. Call a Yoruba person an Igbo person and watch what they say. They could look alike, but they don't organize themselves that way. Never have. Africa has never been this homogeneous utopia, ever. Not then, and it's not now. So there you have it. But anyway, you wanted to show some. I'm sorry for talking that. Let me lower that so you can go ahead
Nah, it's it,
and show your
I think you made some good points. Cause but anyhow, anywho,
So
yeah,
what you're showing is on the screen now. Just let you know.
I took a snapshot of Dr. Clark, um, and I was just curious, like, because I wanted to put them in this website. I've been having so much fun with this site with the lookalikes, and it does kind of show what he's talking about. Because I mean, it pretty much it's killing African Americans at the top, and then you start to get Kablan Asian, Indian, and then we look at females. It's like Christine Applegate, and you can kind of see she has his nose, so you kind of see where it's going, and
Wait, wait,
it's
wait, 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 wait. Ho. Pause for a second. Pause a second. Maybe I zoned out for a second. Wait a minute. So, wait, you created this from. So, start over again. I'm sorry.
I did a snapshot of his face while he was talking, and I put him in Starby face, which is like a celebrity lookalike, and
Oh, I
it
got you.
does.
Okay, that's what I missed. I missed you saying that.
And I was making the point because I had a feeling this is what you'd see because you normally see this. You don't. Some people will completely black it out. It'll be male and female, like all people would be classified as black. But normally, what you see is how race just breaks down, and we look like our parents and our parents' parents. But like especially you go back maybe 30,000 years ago, we're all grouped together and we're sharing certain features that last to this day. So yeah, I can kind of see the resemblance of having a little upturned nose and indentation with Christine Applegate. If you have an algorithm that's measuring different locations of facial features, and this is pretty accurate. Like if you put two of the same people in there, unless like they've aged, it usually will hit them at 100%. The lowest I've seen is 70 if it's two of the same, if it's the same person. But it was just fun to play with because like I get curious like when people ask what do people look like, you know, it's funny the results you'll see with Olmecs if you put them in here. Not quite what you expect, but maybe it depends. I've put like hundreds of Egyptians in here and East Africans, Northwest Africans, everything. So that's all. I'll probably one day do a big write up and just kind of talk about the results, but that leans more towards what I was talking about earlier. Like to me, the question about race is all about now and not about yesterday. Um, and it's all about depictions and the minds of people and propaganda and that's about it really because I'll tell you right now there are Egyptian images that will black this whole thing out, male and female, and there are Egyptian images where let's see who's no, you don't I don't see anyone that like a lot of times you'll see the same white women with certain Egyptian images, but you don't really see it here. So They'll black it out, they'll white it out, and you could do the same thing with probably East Africans in the same tribe, and there's just that much diversity. And it's not looking at color; it's just looking at measurements of different facial features.
Well,
But
that's
that's it.
interesting.
It'll probably be a while before I actually show all of this. I'm still having fun with it, but
Well, that's interesting because with the AI and the facial recognition technology and software that we have, they they are able to spin off and do things like this. In terms of morphing facial features and ignoring everything else, but looking at the measurements and the geometry of certain facial features, the depth, the width of things, and so on and so forth, and kind of group people that you input. So if you input a group of 50 people, or you compare one person against a group of 50 people, it can organize it according to who's the closer matches based on certain parameters and things like that. So I've seen that before because like I had this app a long time ago called Morph Age, and ever since then, I had the first version, and it was a software I used to two people looking at software will morph them and transfer one person over to the other in a very slow, continuous, smooth way, to where you can just completely see how people look alike or not, and so on and so forth. So that technology has definitely advanced since I've had that. That was in the early 2000s or whatever. But but I'm saying that would be interesting for people to use that in that way and whatnot. Now there's been some articles, but let me acknowledge some people we got Robert Rand on the panel and Cedric. So anytime you all want to grab the mic, because I'm not going to be too much longer, so I don't want to just keep
Yeah, well,
repeating
I'm
myself
gonna,
and
I'm gonna
not
jump
give
right
everybody a
in.
chance to not get a chance to speak. So let me
Peace,
just
family. I'm gonna
pass the
jump
mic.
right in. I'm gonna jump right in, and I'm gonna start at the back end with regards to your rant. And while you were going on your rant, I've seen how much have grown in this community, and I felt like you were like a fly in the wall in our Discord and echoing everything I've been saying. And I want to come on this channel, Wujao, because I debated you on this channel before and stuff like that. And at a certain point, I want everybody to understand my level of unbiasedness because I want to thank you personally for walking us, everybody, and in particular myself, through the Book of Gates, the tomb, how you meticulously took your time to break that down, explaining exactly what was going on. So the concept, so the understanding of why the thing, why the four groups of four were in a particular way, how to understand who exactly you were in terms of reading the glyph, and and your fundamental understanding of the culture allowed you to explain in such detail what was going on that it was so clear to me when an argument came up that was so ridiculous that I could simply defend myself based your on your teaching. So I'm thank you because it helps me to stay out of the pseudo waters. Again, I keep telling everyone when I came into the community as scientifically literate as I was one of those people that was under the guise of the geopolitical slang when referring to Egypt as Middle East, which is geopolitical. Um, and I completely and utterly thought that Egypt was in the Middle East, whereby somewhere around the Arabians and stuff like that, because you just go with the terminology that you hear, geopolitical. I'm not in that space of mind. So when I'm coming into the community and getting correct information, because that's all I want. I fundamentally want to believe as many true things as possible. And then we go through the rigor of the exercising of listening to the debates and the arguments, and slowing conversations down. And I've reached to the point that I'm going to use an unquote, Egyptomania. And everything you said in your rant identifies everything I've observed in this community. We go from goofy to blackology. We go from
He said from
unable.
goofy to blackology.
Yeah, yeah. You see, I can pick up on certain quotes that I'm gonna repeat. So, and it's absolutely true. We go from completely goofy, like Mediterranean culture, and it's like when you say the things, I'm like, okay, I know I'm fundamentally correct in my thought process. It's a culture that is on or borders the Mediterranean. But when you say Mediterranean culture, you create an imagery as if these was a seafaring people, as the Minoans, as the Vikings or the Phoenician, which creates.
Exactly. See, that's the problem I have. It's like it's people are trying to insinuate that by saying these things, and I think it's just totally unfair. That's why I say it's goofy, because it's not nice to do. Like, what are we doing? You know,
Exactly. You're muddying
you
the
know.
waters, and you accuse others of doing so, and that's unfair when you do that. Next,
Yep.
with regards to the conclusions that on one spectrum, we say let the Egyptians speak for themselves. Now, when we
Hmm.
compare the four book of gates that we have, there is one anomaly that we can identify. One
Hmm.
particular painting where the Egyptians, for some reason, identify themselves quite similar, not identical, but quite similar to the Nahisiu, which
Yep.
is the third group of four.
Yep.
All we can say and all I can conclude is that it's an anomaly. We cannot take that conversation any further, or we would have to find a specific text where it indicates why specifically that the depiction was done that way. Other than that, I can only reach to the conclusion it's an anomaly. Now, when we quote and when we do the appeal to authority thing, when we quote that mapping project site, and like you said, I don't care which university it's affiliated to, when we can identify their lack of due diligence in their presentation, and subsequently I don't know if they made this statement in the goofy camp. We reach conclusions that it is wrong.
Well, no.
Um,
Let me tell you.
can
Let
I?
me tell you real quick. Let me just tell you this real quick.
All right.
I contacted the website, and it took them a long time. I contacted them like 3 times, and it took them a long time to respond back to me, and they they haven't changed it on their site, but the person, I had 2 responses. One person acknowledged what I was saying wholeheartedly. Matter of fact, I need to pull that up and show people, especially
Yes,
Chief
you
X,
need to do that.
because Chief
You
X,
need to do that.
because Chief
Why?
X was
Because
the
that
one,
statement was also made.
because Chief X is the one that kept using that site. But see, anybody who reads the glyphs is already going to know that that's just wrong, because the glyphs, it says Remetch right there, but they're saying that that's the I mean, it says Nahisiu, but they're calling him the Remetch, and
Yeah,
so it's just wrong,
it
and
is
it's just
simply
wrong as
it's
day.
wrong. It's wrong
Yeah.
as day. We can argue what you're representing is not what the text says. So now either you don't have the ability to read the text, or you're trying to create a narrative as if the Egyptians didn't know what they were putting on the walls.
Yeah,
And
I'm
when
gonna I'm
and
gonna
when
pull up that
Can
response.
I?
That was like a while back.
and when they conclude in this in the goofy camp
See
that
if I can
it
find it.
simply is wrong. And I say, no, but we cannot make that conclusion. These people were meticulous in what they were doing. We can only say it's an anomaly, and until the Egyptians speak for themselves and tell us why this particular anomaly exists, we can only reach to the conclusion it's an anomaly. That's as far as we can reach. Am I incorrect for making that hard conclusion?
I think so.
Well,
And
here's the thing. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. 42.
but the reason being is I don't think it's that much of an anomaly because there's only about 7 tombs that have that. So it's not like now if you say, well, how often do they depict themselves as jet black or close to that, then that's more of an anomaly. But there's also instances where they'll do like a reddish brown and then a darker reddish brown overlapped as kind of like a way to symbolize the multitude. And then you also have that prosthetic toe that's like pretty much dark brown by how we would define it, and it's painted that way. So I don't
I
think it's
can
that much of an
I
anomaly because it's
I
just
can
not
I agree with you
as many
completely.
instances.
I agree
Wait,
with
wait.
you completely, but I
But
say
let me,
anomaly for the sake of argument. Why? Because they are taking the argument further to conclude that what is on the raw wall, what the Egyptians put on the wall themselves in the goofy camp, and I'm going to say goofy camp, it is concluded that that is wrong. And I say you can never ever make that conclusion. That is bogus.
but see, let me just say this. Um, Dang, I done lost my train. There was something that you said, 42. Dang, what was I going to say?
Well, I was just thinking that you can be
What'd
wrong,
you
but
just
you
say?
can't make 4 people wrong at the same time.
Wait,
Exactly.
you just
Like they
said.
would have
Oh,
like, hold
oh,
on
oh,
a
oh,
second, we didn't get
oh.
much
Okay,
sleep, but
The
okay.
got
This is
text
those
what I was
is
three
going to
to
written
say.
four
twice.
images.
The
This
text,
is
the four images are
Yeah,
identified twice by the text on top and between
yep.
the glyphs. Wrong? Like
well,
what?
okay. But here's the thing. So we know, like, that's how come. Like me, I can no longer take any of those arguments serious. Like I have to really excuse myself from those arguments at this point. Like I used to engage in it. I can't anymore because it's really gotten to the point where anybody, because it's at the level of people just looking at pictures and they're not even reading or even concerned about the actual glyphs and text around the figures, above the heads, in between them, and what the text is actually saying and what it's meant for and stuff like that. Because the text makes it clear that these Nahisiu are a result of the masturbation of Ra. Serious, just like that. The other people are protected by Heru, one's protected by Sekhmet, and so on and so forth. It's telling people how they came about and making those distinctions and how they exist in the Duat, the so-called Egyptian heaven and whatnot, all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing: even with the lookership part, it's not even so much the skin color, the pigment that they use to paint the skin, but it's the attire. So in the tomb of Ramses III, they have identical attire as well. So there was obviously at that point in time for that particular tomb, there was a reason why that was done. The mistake people are making is, or at least for Chief X, is that he was trying to say that the label, the text around them didn't say what it said. And I'm like, how in the world could he even fix his mouth to make those arguments when he doesn't read a lick of the text at all
Oh,
and
so
making
so
mistakes left and
everybody
right?
in the spooky camp is echoing the silly arguments made by that individual. Oh, now I
Yes.
get it. So I'm gonna do what you have done, Wujaw, is I'm not having these arguments anymore because I'm driving myself crazy trying to even contemplate. I even got one argument which was, you know why it is wrong? And here this is, I'm gonna say it extremely slow. So I hope everyone is sitting. It is wrong because the two people are depicted the same, and you can never have the people from two different nations look the same. Drop dead now, everybody. That's an actual argument that came up. Now,
Right. See, I can't.
wow.
You can't do it. So here's the thing.
I can't do it.
Um, here's the thing people gotta understand too, is that the reason why we call these scenes vignettes is because they help illustrate what's being said in the text. It's no different than how we write books today, where we'll have we'll have a whole paragraph of text, but then we want to demonstrate or illustrate something. We put a picture next to the text. The picture kind of helps to explain or elucidate what's written in the text, but the meat and potatoes is the text, not the picture. And so people go for the picture and only focus on the picture and never deal with the text, never read it, don't even understand what's meant there, what's being said, why it's being said, or the whole nine. They don't understand that these vignettes are like a side dish, or an appetite or a side dish to the main course, which is the text itself. And so it explains it, and it's just illustrating it, what's going on. As Heru being, ushering in what's called the cattle of Ra, there where you see the arrow at the bottom. I lost my cursor. Yeah, this arrow right here. And then you had the four groups. Now this is from the tomb of Seti the First. This one right here, drawn up here, is obviously a remake, a redrawing from the tomb of Ramesses III. And so you can clearly see that these two figures here, in appearance, look the same, but they're talking about two different groups. And if you go back and listen to Chief X's arguments, he's trying to deny that this says Remech and stuff, and that they're the same and everything. And I just don't have the time to pull up
the text. I went through the video again. I slowed it down. I studied the video 2 times. I can almost read the glyphs myself now. What identifies the Ramesh versus what identifies the Nehisiu. So. Yep. You cannot make that claim. The text identifies them. The fact that the text follows a specific sequence for a specific reason, you cannot say that the label is in the incorrect place. That those arguments are and I'm a rookie. I know nothing about this stuff.
Even right here. So
the arguments make no sense.
So if you look at the glyphs that are in between these figures on, I know y'all can't see my cursor. Hold up. If you look at this particular grouping right here, this image, this is not a very good picture, by the way. The flash kind of whitened everything out. But in between these figures, they wrote in retrograde fashion the word Remech. Okay, so these figures are indicative of the ancient Egyptians themselves. But then there's another set of 4 that look the same, but in between them spells the word Nehisiu. And so they're different people. And one of Chief X's arguments, and this is where the confusion comes, is because he was saying that they're the same, and it's not the Remech, it's the Nubians or whatever he was saying, and just confused it and butchered it all up. And this is only in one tomb, by the way. Now this is the Book of Gates, and if anybody is familiar with the Book of Gates, this is a particular, I think it's the 5th hour of the Book of Gates, and it's talking about something specific in particular. And the illustrations of the Book of Gates is only available, it's in the tomb of Ramesses III, which you see here, Seti the First, Merneptah, Ramesses the Sixth, I believe, and it escapes me the other ones. I have a list of them. It just escapes my mind right now. But these are the only places you'll see them illustrated. And in all the illustrations, they were consistent with the order. So let me go back to this. The order is always consistent. It always starts with the Remech, and then what comes after the Remech is always the Amu. After the Amu is always the Nehisiu, and what comes after the Nehisiu are the Chemehu. So you got the Egyptians, the West Asians, the so-called Nubians, and then the Libyans. And this word we could spin off and have a whole nother conversation about the word Tamahu. People think it's talking about white people, and that's just not the case either.
It's plagiarism.
So, that's plagiarism. But that's what people
hit him with that. Every time he says Tamahu, he needs to refer back to who mischaracterized those people as Europeans. That is who he's quoting. I can't remember the particular Egyptologist from back in the day,
You talking about Massey?
but
You talking about Massey?
Massey,
Massey,
yeah,
yes, he
yeah.
needs
No,
to
no. But
give
see,
Massey.
I did a video about that a long while ago. It's not really Massey piggybacking off somebody. It's really Champollion. Champollion is the one that kicked it off. See, I go back to Champollion and show where Champollion messed it up. Massey took from Champollion and added some pseudo stuff. He said the word "hu" means created evil, and Tamahu means the force of created will, or and all this other kind of stuff. The filth, the created filth, and stuff like that. He just made up his own definitions, but it really started with Champollion. Yep, and I have it. I could probably pull it up another time. But look, I got 8 minutes,
I'm
y'all.
gonna
So
say it
we could
again. I appreciate
kick it.
you. I might argue with you and debate you on some other stuff, but when it comes to your mastery of breaking down not only the language but the full understanding and the concepts and the way these people think, the fact that you've armed me to the point that I can say without reason, like, y'all goofy, y'all, this is making no sense. So I gotta say
Well, nah.
thank you, because I'm
Well,
well
I
armed.
appreciate you coming. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Even when you disagree. I mean, cause like I mean, I'm consistent. Like I don't shy away from disagreement. I welcome it because that's where I come from. I come from a science and math cloth
Yeah, in
where
our
that's the
community,
norm.
people tend to see debates or disagreements, and they quick to label like, he doesn't like. No, so when I
Yeah,
get
they
the
gotta cut that
opportunity
out.
to humble myself all the way down and give you all the full credit to show that complete other side, I'm not, like, I'm humble to that point and say, you know what, I got the big Mujao up in these YouTube streets because some of these arguments these cats are bringing is downright goofy. You're right. We go from goofy to blackology, and I'm trying to find that even middle road. And and when it is, and like Dr. Clark said, it's a more or less of how I look instead of who I am type of argument. And I try to make people realize that the argument is completely irrelevant by saying, look, man, um, this runs the spectrum. You can't narrow it down to a specific phenotype or color. So the argument becomes redundant. Like, it, it, it,
Yeah.
it, it's just redundant. You know what I mean? But I appreciate all the work you put in, and I was well armed to take on the goofy gang.
Well, I missed that. What was that on a video or something? Because I
No,
didn't
it
catch that.
was it was in the Discord. But everything you said in your rant, like everything you said, it's like every word I was saying, and it was like deja vu when you were building your rant. And again, it made me feel good because I'm well armed. Because these are everything you said was everything that is going on and everything I was addressing. Like, no, it's not a Mediterranean culture. It probably is on the Mediterranean or borders the Mediterranean, but you cannot use the term Mediterranean culture. It sets a wrong narrative. It establishes the Egyptians as a seafaring relationship with the sea type of people, and that's just not what it was.
Yeah, that's disingenuous and everything. See how I shut that down? I try to find the simplest shutdown because everything about ancient Egypt, from its spookiness to its science to its livelihood to everything, was always about that Nile River and not the Mediterranean Sea.
Thank you very
So
much.
for anybody to say it's a Mediterranean culture, that's just an outright right facetious thing to say. It's like disingenuous purposely. It's like intentionally just being crazy
My
because
sentiment,
every
exactly.
everything about Egypt, everything that they write about, everything that they do, everything, even their heaven, quote unquote, is all about the Nile. It's not about the Mediterranean. It's not about that.
It's
It's not about that at all. It's about the Nile, the Nile. It's the Nile. See, they have a word called sa'unk, which is the word unk with the causative s on the front, which means to cause to live, right? And we would simply say in living, like to cause to live, and they say it's the Nile, specifically happy Iteru, the Nile which enlivens Egypt and its people. They don't say Wajwer, which is their word for the Mediterranean. They don't say Wajwer enlivens the people. That's the end of the road. That's where the Nile dumps out into. And so they got to cut that out. It's not a Mediterranean culture. It's only a Mediterranean culture in the very narrow, very, very narrow sense that it borders, part of Egypt is along the Mediterranean Sea. That's it. Other than that, nah.
it's code for white because like if they were to just come out and say white, then they would kind of look petty and corny. So
so
they were like,
so they got to mask it.
yeah, they that's been like that because African. If you say African, that's code for black. And they were so then they was like, well, these was different types of Africans. These were North Africans, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but they weren't in the Atlas Mountains. I always bring that up because Africa, the only area where you could really benefit by having some pale skin would have been the Atlas Mountains when it froze over during the Ice Age, and everything above it froze over. But that's it. And you do see like some really light skinned Africans coming from near that region, but like Egypt didn't
Yeah.
freeze over.
All of
It
it is,
became
is crazy.
swampy, so like that meant more people lived in the southern region.
Yep. Everybody lived along that Nile River. Everybody lived along that Nile River. The Delta became popular because that was the access point to the histories from which we get through the Greeks and Romans. The Greco-Roman historians and stuff like that, from their perspective that we get taught and learned in schooling and stuff, comes from that perspective, which is from their vantage point, from the Mediterranean down into Mennefer called Memphis.
Yeah.
And for a long time, they didn't even know the source of the Nile. They didn't even know the extent of the Nile. Nobody from the northern countries and continents even knew where the Nile went and things like that until fairly recently, like relatively recent, I should say. So
Have have you
that's
ever
why they focus
heard
on the Mediterranean.
like Somalia called a Red Sea culture?
Nah.
I mean, it's hugged up tighter to the Red Sea
Yeah, that's what I'm
than
saying.
Y'all
Egypt to the
stop it.
Mediterranean.
Y'all stop it.
That's why.
Y'all, every word that you're saying is what I said today. Like y'all was eyes on the wall. Come
And
on
then
now.
and then on top, but look, then on top of that, so along with the Mediterranean argument that I've seen in the past, you also have this. Well, it's not so much as the Mediterranean. I think the Mediterranean is more of a hotter topic now, but it used to be Middle East, Middle East, and they don't understand that Middle East is a region.
Geopolitical,
It's just yeah, it's a geopolitical region that's defined
based
in a
on
modern
Arab
sense,
unity, modern sense.
and exactly that's the key word. It's based on the Arab unity because you got Arab states on the world definition of state that comprise the Middle Eastern region. And so, because Egypt is dominated by Arab speakers, an Arab speech community, and Muslims, they're included, even though Egypt is on the continent of Africa, it's included in the geopolitical boundaries of what's called the Middle East. And that's it.
Yes. And when they use that term for a layman, it automatically takes Egypt out of Africa. You want to see how beautiful you can look at that? Type in Northeast Africa in Wiki, pull up the image, and just after that, type in. You can see how these things are manipulated. Egypt is full on into Northeast, all down to
Oh, you breaking up.
Eritrea. Sorry, down to Eritrea and Ethiopia, all included in Northeast Africa. Then when you say Middle East, Egypt all of a sudden is included in Mesopotamia.
Hey, just sorry to cut short because I was supposed to be out of here at 10 o'clock. So I'm gonna give Emiket, she popped in here if she had anything to close out with, or if anybody got some last remarks real quick, because I hate to do the abrupt the abrupt end, but I was supposed to get up off here at 10 o'clock. I got another commitment. So Emiket, you got anything, or are you good?
Oh, well, I actually just came in to make sure that some of the questions didn't go unanswered. But since we don't have time, we could leave them. I one specific from Stripe, so maybe we can do that the next time.
Okay, we can do it tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. So that, and
We can
then
do that tomorrow.
okay, so other than that, since we are out of time, just make sure, because this conversation itself, it's like there's one medicine that we definitely, I could tell you, like, you take that, you'll be good. And that is the book that we had in our book club. And I just put the link to the book club, so then you can get all the information about the book. And if you missed up the first book club we had, then you can definitely just read the book on your own, and then we can still gather when we get to the next book for the second book club and discuss this. But that book literally is the dose, what you need for this kind of conversation. It just explains everything very, very, very easily. And so that is something that we definitely recommend. People don't want to talk much about that book because that book kills all the conversation. I don't know if you have the picture, you want to put it up, and recommend that for everybody who's still struggling to understand this particular topic. I would definitely still recommend that book. And that's it.
I'm
All
just
right.
gonna say,
Any
Sorry. Yeah, before I forget again, because we had some new people on our chat today. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because we usually don't, for the most part, we just go live whenever. So make sure that you subscribe and you hit that notification bell, because we have a lot coming up. I know you don't want to miss our show tomorrow as well. That's actually a good one. So I'll be on the lookout for that one as well. Sure.
Okay, let me just this is the book you're referring to. This is an excellent book. I recommend we went over this book in our as a first book in our book club, and I recommend everybody to get it. It's very I sound like a salesman for the book, but I have nothing to do with the book. But it is really, really good because the author did a really good job at being concise, because it's not a real long book, but it's long enough to include everything, where he talks about the ethnic identities in the land of the pharaohs, where he talks about the scientific racism, the racism in early Egyptology. He talks about the Egyptian views of themselves versus otherness, the foreignness of it, and everything. And he walks you through it in a kind of systematic way. So it's really, really good. It's only like I believe it's 200. No, not even that. It was like 100 pages. So it's not even a long read. This book alone right here will shut down a lot of the conversations, or it will help the conversations tremendously and put them on track to where we could benefit from them. It'll remove the goofy part out of the conversations. So again, this is a book that Emiket was just talking about, and this is what I recommend. Definitely. So get the book. And matter of fact, the book is only $20 on Amazon. So just type in the title on Amazon. It's available on Kindle. So if you got a Kindle, just download it and read it. So there you have it. But I'm sorry to end everything abruptly. But I definitely have to bounce off here. I wish I could stay, because I did want to address some of the comments in the chat and all of that good stuff.
You can save them.
Yeah. So listen, we'll go live tomorrow, and we'll pick up. I think I'll watch this. I'll watch the last part of this video once it's archived, and I'll look at the chat. You know how you could watch the video, and I'll see if there's any questions, or leave some questions under the comment section, and we'll go live. Because tomorrow, be on the lookout. Tomorrow, if time permits, we're gonna do like a freestyle Friday. So we're gonna go over some text, but we're gonna kind of break it down to show people, how to actually properly, transliterate, translate, and maybe give some even grammar points. But we're gonna choose a text that's kind of one of the hot topic type texts. Maybe something dealing with what Christianity stolen from Egypt type text. and stuff like that. A primary source though. All right, so we're gonna that's the intent. All right. So anyway, so I'm gonna say peace to everybody. Everybody stay safe out there. And be pseudo free. But Shimon Hotep.
Said that when you go to chemist school, you became more alert. You more wake up. Your spirit wake up, and you became a more human being. That's your character is built in a school. When you study what we call classical studies, we must know Netcher. You see, maybe in the future we need to know some heretic too. We need to know Netcher. So the most achievement in Kemet for me is education. The way they think, they build, and they practice their education is very unique in history. Without education, I believe there will be no Kemet.